Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Yay! Woo!
To have a great new year.
Happy New Year to you!
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you and happy 2025.
Here's to 2025.
Hello, listeners, and hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Leading with Integrity. This is another special. This is our end of year, our New Year special. We're going to be talking about key learnings from 2024, biggest takeaways, what each of our guests might be doing differently in 2025, and some nice, wholesome leadership lessons and inspirational thoughts to share as well. So we have nearly a dozen different guests. There's some familiar faces from past episodes, a few who were also on the Christmas special last week, and some new faces as well who haven't appeared on the podcast before, but they will be doing a full-length episode during the new year as well. So a bit of both, something feeling a bit new, which is appropriate for a new year, isn't it? So we will dive straight into that, and I won't hang about anymore.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Alan and Emily, welcome back to Leading with Integrity. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Yay! Woo! Should we get rid of our Christmas jumpers for Happy New Year?
I'm just going to go like this. You can't see it anymore. Yeah. Well, Scott, welcome back again.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, almost. Yes. Right. So, New Year special then. Happy New Year almost on New Year's Eve. So it's nearly New Year. So welcome back again for a third time this year. Drew, it's great to have you back on the show again.
Well, I obviously have a good time, my man, because I'll just keep rolling back every time you ask me.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Julian, welcome to Leading with Integrity. I was about to say welcome back, but actually the episode we've recorded recently hasn't been released yet. So welcome for the first time, and also welcome back next time.
Yes. Good to be back and good to be here for the first time as well.
Yeah, well, there we go. Yeah, it can be like a time travel paradox, can't it? Lovely.
Indeed. Just confuse your listeners.
Yes, well, we try to avoid doing that, but never mind, hey. And happy almost New Year as well, of course.
Indeed, yeah.
Well, welcome back again, Stebbington. Happy almost New Year.
Yay! Did you have a good Christmas?
Yes.
Did you get a good present?
Probably. Eugene, so welcome back again.
Thanks for having me back. Happy New Year.
Lee, welcome to Leading with Integrity. Your first time on the show, and you're here for a special. So isn't that great?
I am. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. So New Year, almost. It's the 31st of December today.
I've just realized I haven't done a podcast in a while, so this is
okay. Well, Denzel, welcome back to Leading with Integrity anyway. It's lovely to have you on the show again.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And we're going to talk about, New Year stuff, really. Helen, welcome back to Leading with Integrity. What is this, the second or third time you've been on now?
Third time if you count the Christmas special last year.
Yeah, there you go. So, welcome back again. Great to see you, as always.
Nice to be here.
Gretchen, welcome back to Leading with Integrity. It's lovely having you back on the show for the second time this year, hopefully not the last.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and happy almost New Year as well.
You know, we say it every single year. I can't believe we're already at the end of the year.
Yeah, I find the older I get, the faster time passes. I suppose that makes sense, relatively speaking, but it's
Don't
not nice.
That. Right. Age is in your heart.
Yeah, you're only as old as you feel. Yeah,
absolutely.
Wait, no. You're only as old as you act. In that case, I'm okay, I think.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so first question. What is your biggest takeaway from 2024?
I reckon I could do mine.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. It's been a fun year, 2024. Different to 2023 by polar. Yeah, it's been a bit mad.
It has been mad. That's a good, I don't want to hark back to our Christmas one, but there's almost an element of magic to it. No, it's been mad, more than magic.
Go for yours first.
Well, mine's got, I think, I don't know if there's been a learning or anything. There's always a learning, isn't there, actually? But I think one of my big things was really embracing don't think, just do, you know. And I know it's stupid. It's from Maverick, right? Top Gun Maverick. But it really does resonate with me. And it's like, you know, as long as you understand what you're doing, understand where you're going, understand like whatever buzzwords you want to put on it, like your pillars, you know, your values and kind of what you're selling and your themes and everything else we talk about at Yellow Tuxedo, I think then don't overthink it. Yeah. Just smash it out. You know, like I put some holiday pictures on LinkedIn, fully expecting. I've never been told in all my years of LinkedIn usage. I have never had anyone comment, "This is LinkedIn, not Facebook." Right? And I just wonder if that's one of those false things that actually happens. Anyway, I posted some holiday pictures. And they did all right. You know, there was no learning. There was no sale. There was no flexing. It was just I said I was going on holiday. Here's some pictures type post. And it's got some engagement. It's done okay. And I just feel there's way too much. Actually, mini one. So I like to think about flow state, right? So I've always had these thoughts on flow state and when you're in the flow and all the rest of it. And I've always wondered about people who are achieving and whether it's just achieving in inverted commas, obviously. It's natural. They don't overthink it. And I came to this conclusion, but perhaps they're just in flow state. And I think there's an element of flow in don't think, just do. And every time you stop to think, when you have your parameters set, you're going to resist that kind of almost ability to enter flow, and you need to trust the process, and then that will all happen.
So mine.
You're just glossing straight at half.
No, because it ties into yours a little bit with the idea of flow state.
I thought it was that bad. You've just glossed straight past it.
It ties into yours a little bit. I don't think it's just that, you know, you're in your flow. We had a massive shift this year in how we decided to deliver our business, and for the first time, so we've been running Yellow Tuxedo as a business since 2019. And when we started in 2019, we had a very specific way that we wanted to show up, what we wanted to do, what we thought, what we felt. And then kind of somewhere in the middle of that 5 year, we kind of didn't lose our way, but we got very consumed, exactly what we didn't want to do, with hardcore networking, with
listening to
experts and to doing this, and this person's doing similar to us, they're doing that over there. And it was very consuming. And I feel that
it was about 2 years.
For a little while, we felt that feeling of hustle and that feeling of, and that comparisonitis, all the things that we all do because we're all human, right? And then this year, for whatever reason, we went, enough's enough. This is stupid. Don't want to do this. We had a little rejiggle with a few of our services and how we wanted to show up. And we reverted back to how we first started in 2019, which is our original Yellow Tuxedo. And the minute we did that, both of us went,
I feel you've just given the detail to my don't think, just do.
And it was kind of this is what we want to do. This is what we show up for. This is how we want to run our life and our business, because that's why we do business at the end of the day. We don't do it so to be like the big corporations or to be like Joe over there. We
just want to be Emily and Alan Braithwaite in Yellow Tuxedo. That's all we want to be.
We stopped putting so many like one-to-one networking one-to-ones in the diary. We can cut that all out. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. And all of a sudden our weeks became emptier, but they became more productive in the time because actually we're giving ourselves that headspace. We stopped worrying about how we show up on LinkedIn, as Alan said.
We've said this publicly before. We feel the after when we started the company, that kind of first rise, the first junction where we felt it changed for a direction we didn't want was going proactive networking and getting involved on LinkedIn. Right?
Yeah.
This is true. We felt those two things massively changed the direction of Yellow Tuxedo to a direction we didn't particularly want it to be.
To the point now, going back to how we've changed for the 2024, this has been, so September to December, that quarter has been our most successful winter quarter we've ever had. We've had, usually it's like Christmas is a quiet time for us, and we've
just taken on a new client last night.
Yeah, we are literally at the point where it's coming through the door. Money's still coming through the door. We're still busy for the first time. We usually take.
Are you flexing?
No,
Do I need to do this? Like loads of money, Harry Enfield.
We're not exactly billionaires on Billionaire Island right now. But
we are far from.
Historically, we'd kind of go, let's not stress about this. Let's just take December off because we're not getting.
We can't do anything about it.
This is the first Christmas we've gone, oh crap, we've got to work. This is a good problem to have. And I do credit that to the fact that we went back to our core values and what we want to do, not what other people are doing. And that's how this year went.
No, it's really true. And going back to that LinkedIn thing, I am a little bit anti LinkedIn. I feel it does drive a certain narrative in the solopreneur freelancer world of trying to be. I feel there's this element of this is how you do it, or this is what I've done. Like, it's not showing off. It's almost trying to validate what you can do by what you've done rather than kind of leading, for want of a better phrase, actually. And I feel a lot of the other social networks are about engaging and having fun. And for whatever, we weren't on LinkedIn until we went proactive networking. And because everyone we met
on LinkedIn.
Yeah, everyone we met network. We were just on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube before that, right? Quite happily growing a business. As we've said before, we grew Yellow Tuxedo off DMing people on Instagram with voice notes saying hello. That's all. And because we met all these people networking, they said connect on LinkedIn. So we went, LinkedIn must be the place. We knew what it was. I was on it from my employed days. And actually I found it quite for me, because it works for other people, quite a negative experience. Now, saying that, I'm actually quite happy with LinkedIn again, but that's because I'm posting my holiday snaps on it rather than trying to go validating who we are. And, you know, this week we won the award for best yellow jumpers, and which is fine, right? I want to be.
I like your yellow and pink jumper.
I do want people to share their good stories. I absolutely do. We should be proud to share our good stuff, right? And I'm not anti that, but there is an element of. I think half the people you engage with on LinkedIn would not be talking like that if you met them in the pub. That's the point. It's not, I don't want to use authentic because it is authentic. It's not a naturally flowing conversational platform.
I know what you mean. So, I mean, we've talked about this don't think, just do it before. I think the way you've explained it today, though, I see a lot more sense in it than last time.
Is that because I articulated better?
No, I said you've got your parameters set. Yeah.
But I mean, between the two, so I think what maybe I didn't get before when we talked about it before, that it's less about just the knee-jerk reaction. It's more about don't overthink. And I think that I'm overthinking it, obviously, but I think that is, especially for like a small business owner where it's just one or two of you, you can just lose months of your life just going around in the thought cycle, can't you? And you never achieve anything. So yeah, actually, I get it now. That makes perfect sense to me all of a sudden.
Do you remember Alan Fawcett? He did some stuff with Yellow Tuxedo in the Digital Circus Live a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I met him.
Infinite Pie Thinking. Yeah, nice guy. It was friend of ours, not friend of the company. He did a session at the Digital Circus Live for us years ago, and. He, in making this as short as possible, he basically said, I'm going to wing it. And I went, you don't wing anything. He said, well, I'm not really winging it because it's based on 30 years of living and experience and life. And I feel, don't think, just do is exactly that. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's basing it on everything you know and trusting that process a bit more. There we go. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. And I think like anything, I mean, another example that pops into my head is that whole movement around radical candor. I think like anything, if you choose to take the wrong lesson from it, then you can cause real harm with it. So radical candor, like a lot of managers, not leaders, took that as an excuse to just not have to dress anything up anymore, just be brutally honest and don't care about people's feelings. When actually, if you read the book, it's very much the opposite of that. It's about giving people the honest truth, but with kindness. And
yes.
Yeah. So, and I think it's similar with this is if you're not reading further into it, if you're not getting that key point of it's about not overthinking, then what you're going to do is just jump into every situation without any thought or prep or really idea. and make it all worse, probably. And I think, there's plenty of managers doing that already. We don't need any more of those. Well, thank you. That was a good one. Also, last note, I'm going to jump on LinkedIn in a minute and comment on your photos and just say this isn't Facebook. Could you?
Please do.
Please do that, David. You know I would love that.
Do you know what though, Alan? I read it, and I read your caption to go with the photos. And yes, there was no business learning. But there was.
I still wrote it in it. And, if I'm being brutally honest, I still wrote that caption in a LinkedIn style. I still found myself doing that. I didn't, I put my holiday photos on Facebook and went, Madeira photo dump, enjoy, something like that, right? And I was going to write that on LinkedIn. And I went, no, I probably need to tailor it. Hold on. Technically, I am tailoring it for the platform. But fundamentally, I did just drop my holiday photos.
Yeah.
And there is yellow.
I know what you mean about LinkedIn, though.
It makes the trip tax deductible.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn, just social media generally winds me up with stuff like that. I think LinkedIn is getting worse lately. I've noticed there's a lot of the same posts coming from wildly different people. And maybe they've all got the same marketing agency or something, and it's actually the same person writing it.
I have this LinkedIn theory, which I don't think is actually true, but I'm going to go with it. But you get these people and they go, I put one post up and got 10 clients, right? You see these all the time, right? They are only ever LinkedIn coaches or copywriters, right? No one else.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, no one else puts. I don't go, I put a post up and got 10 clients. What do you sell? Online visibility, specialism, and fun and ridiculousness over here. It's like, no, that never happened. But the LinkedIn specialist, and my other one is, how can you be a LinkedIn specialist on LinkedIn and only have 1,000 or 2,000 followers? That's my other one. It's like,
it's not about the quality.
No, I agree that. But I also feel, so they always go, it's a vanity metric.
You're being a right bitch about LinkedIn right now. Can you stop it?
When have we ever not been?
Well, we're a positive company.
We are a positive company. I think it's great to connect with people we want to connect with. I absolutely love people, love chatting with people, and I want to see more holiday pictures on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. I can agree with that. I mean, again, I've met some great people on LinkedIn, some great relationships I wouldn't have otherwise. It's never got me any business though. So I guess it's about what you're using it for and what actually matters.
Yeah. Are you a copywriter or a LinkedIn coach?
I'm not. And I've never made one post and got 10 clients. In fact, I've made thousands of posts and got no clients. So maybe I should post that, see what happens.
Yeah,
maybe that would be the post that got me 10 clients.
David, I think that is an essential post. I absolutely do.
Do a Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, don't think, just do.
Yeah. Okay, maybe.
Let's move on.
In the States, we just completed an election cycle. And I'm going to segue from that into a statement that I heard a futurist named Peter Diamandis say. And I'm not going to get this exactly correct, but it was Peter Diamandis. And he said, look, our minds are neural nets. Be careful what you train it on. And that quote just really, really kind of resonated with me because I have family members on all sides of the political spectrum who are training their neural nets, sometimes many hours a day, on a certain viewpoint of the world. And the media has figured out the Dorito for the mind, the Oreo cookie for the mind, which is to keep us agitated, frustrated, angry, confused, curious, and we're clicking. And, it's so interesting because I wish there was some way, by many accounts, we live in one of the best times in world history to live. You're in the UK. Think of the history of the UK. Oh my gosh. I watched a video on that for about 20 minutes the other day. And whether it was the Huns or the Normans or the Vandals, or let's just go down the list, the Romans. And we live in one of the best times in history. And so much good is happening in our world. And so I've really kind of taken that advice to heart. Be careful what you train your neural net with, and who are the people you surround yourself with. What are the conversations you have? One reason I love the podcast, and I know you feel this way, is that I'm in these really cool conversations with really incredible people all the time. And there's so much good. And so I think for me, that's just one thing that just continues to stay top of mind for me. And I want to be informed, but I don't want to be sucked in. I don't want to be contributing to that dysfunction. And in many ways, that's how I perceive it, regardless of kind of political flavor. It's divided us. It's designed to divide us, to anger us. And again, that sells. And they've figured that out. They've figured out the business model moving from print to digital. And so that's one of my biggest takeaways is what am I training my neural net on? What information am I letting in? What am I consuming? So I've come across this newsletter called 1440, which is an interesting newsletter. It's a daily newsletter, comes into my email. It gives me the headlines. I feel like I'm informed, but it's not in any way, shape, or form an opinion. It's just, here are the facts. These are the people that Donald Trump has put into his cabinet. This is the Dow. This is the sports score. And I feel informed. And I've just eliminated myself. I mean, think about the multi-billion-dollar industry, at least in the United States, that polls have become. And again, just designed to keep us on edge, agitated, confused, worried. And I just don't have time for it. There's too much good in the world. There's too much good to kind of capitalize on and explore. So that's my biggest takeaway from 2024. And that's what I'm reflecting on.
It's an important issue. It's a big issue. I feel like it's something that a lot of people are getting a bit more conscious of than they were even like a year or two ago.
I hope.
Although then again, I mean, you look at election results and maybe not just yours.
Well,
it's tough.
It is. But I think there are a lot of people who are kind of really sucked into, again, across the spectrum of whatever narratives they're sucked into. And, we have this filter that delivers to us the 4 or 5 things that went wrong in the world yesterday, the biggest things that went wrong in the world yesterday. And we don't have an equal and opposite filter to show us the 9 billion people that went out into the world, did some good, behaved well, and you know what? Were productive for society. And I mean, if you think about the imbalance there, it's fascinating to think about. Billions of people doing good. And we immediately have video of or hear about the 1 or 2 people, the slightest of margins of people who did it ill. So that's what I'm thinking about. How am I training my neural net, and who am I surrounding myself with? What am I consuming? And again, I want to be aware and I want to be informed, but I don't necessarily want to be sucked into the drama. And that's what I'm thinking about.
Yes. Yeah. When we did our full length episode earlier in the month, wasn't it? Earlier this year. You were talking about the 180 cognitive biases. I think it was 180. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel, that's very relevant to this as well. And I probably think about this way more than I should, but I really want to pin down and figure out, when did the news become less about what was newsworthy and what's important and what people need to know, and more about what will sell, or in the modern age, what will get the clicks? Where was that tipping point?
Well, it's okay. So
slightly rhetorical. I don't expect you to have the answer. But
well, in the United States, at least in the United States, I forget the name of the act, David, but in the United States, there was an act that was repealed, and I think it was the Fair Communication Act. It was something of that nature. But basically, it decreed that both sides had to be given equal time on a news program. That was repealed sometimes in the 80s or 90s in the United States. And then that gave way to more of the newstainment, Rush Limbaugh, Rachel Maddow, Keith Olbermann, depending on whatever your flavor is. Now, you've also then kind of had the rise of some of the comedians, The Daily Show and such, where they're kind of stirring the pot in their own way. They are othering and making fun of. So you have this just kind of toxic soup a lot of times, and that's just not healthy. And you've had it in the UK for years, the rags, the tabloids that sell and the scandalous. Yeah. So I think that's as old as time as far as us as human beings. But again, the kind of democratization of that and the widespread nature of that now, and just the billions and billions of dollars, at least for us, it's kind of like a capitalism unbridled. And as long as it's making money, we keep doing it. And even if it's having ill effects on our population. So my sense is that the BBC and that you all in the UK are a little bit more mature about all of this. A little more mature than we are.
So, I mean, it's interesting. So you're talking about that act that was repealed. So yeah. I don't know if there's an equivalent law in the UK. However, the BBC, because it's public owned, and part of its charter in order to exist is that it's supposed to be impartial. However, I think what happens, at least in that case, and I'm not going to give any examples because they're always politically charged and very divisive. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But I think that, there's quite a lot of examples you could point to where, in order to appear as though they're being impartial, what they do is give equal weight to two sides of an argument. But quite often, one side of that argument is the conventional wisdom, the accepted truth, the scientific truth, even in some cases. And so it's very difficult to find an opposing view in order to appear balanced. So what they quite often do is they take a fringe view and then elevate that and give it equal weight as what is something that's essentially factual. And that has an even worse negative effect, I think, because I'm on the soapbox, I know, because it gives legitimacy to something that is just completely incorrect or untruthful or deliberately provocative or and so on and so forth.
I mean, in the United States, it's like this state senator tweeted this, and then that becomes a headline and that inflames. And I mean, it's designed to agitate, anger, worry. And I don't have time for it. And I don't necessarily have a solution because I want to be informed. That's part of my job is to be informed. But I'm trying to figure out how to navigate it because it's not useful. It's not helpful.
No, I agree. And it is incredibly difficult to stay informed, but also avoid falling prey to the biases that are built into what, for whatever reason, those agendas want you to think, whether it's a money agenda or a political one or social. I'm not ascribing good nor bad to any of those. It's just there's always some agenda behind everything. And so to make sure that you are getting an impartial view, like the level of research you have to do personally into every single headline, and who has the time for that or the energy for that, the patience? It's, you can't apply that level of academic rigor to every single thing you read.
And again, it's just tragic that we don't have some way. So two things come to mind. One, how do you monetize the middle? How do you monetize the normal human being who's fairly pragmatic in their perspectives? Because when I talk to my friends of the opposite affiliation, 9 times out of 10, we're in the same ballpark. There might be some nuances we disagree on, but generally speaking, we want similar things. So how do you monetize the middle? It seems like the fringes are what's getting clicked, and that's what's fueling and creating. And then also the other piece for me, just in all of this, is I don't know. I don't have time for how do I want to spend my time, and I think that's a really, really important question for each one of us to ask ourselves. But that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about in 2025. Is what am I going to train my neural net on?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you find the answer to any of these questions, do let us know.
Talking with people like you, it's a hell of a lot more productive.
Yeah. Or at least feels it. Anyway, maybe it's deceptive. I don't know.
I think my biggest takeaway, my friend, was the difference between available time and usable time. And a big part of that is that my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's very early this year. And the year has featured, for anyone who's had to live through it, the decline that comes with that disease. And so my mom we don't know how much time left, but before the time ran out, her ability to use it the way that I know that she'd want to, that has expired. And so there's time left, but not usable time. And I started to realize that let's just look at it from a business perspective to start. as a business person, as a professional, the highest earning years of your life will be the ones at the end. That is when you will be able to leverage your experience and your accomplishments into greater and greater opportunities and rewards, etc. So if the last few years of your career are going to be the most lucrative, both in terms of what you can accomplish and how you're compensated for it, we need to put a lot of focus into being as healthy as possible for those years. And we take it for granted because being healthy when you're younger, all you have to focus on is not being unhealthy. But as you get older, you have to focus on being healthy. Because when you're younger, just don't do things that will make you unhealthy and your body will naturally just fade to healthiness. As you get older, it isn't the case. The biggest thing I took away from this year in terms of my life and my business came from my personal life, which was watching my mother lose her ability to be herself over the course of this year. And to me, it made me realize that say yes to every opportunity you can and seize on everything you've always wanted to do. Because maybe we've got 25 years left, but maybe only 15 of them are usable. Only 15 of them your body or your mind holds out. So the biggest thing I took away is that how I behave today will have a massive impact on how the wisest, most lucrative, most potentially exciting and impactful years of my life, how I behave today impacts how well I get to take advantage of them. And that's one thing I took away from this year is that time isn't all created equal. And so the sooner you use time effectively, the more effective you'll get to be able to use it. So for a guy with ADHD who keeps putting things off, it was a big eye opener this year to realize that time used now will almost always be used more fruitfully than time used later.
Yeah, I mean, it's very deep, I have to say, without being twee or cliche about it. It really is. And it is one of those things. And you're so right. When you're young, you just don't think about it, do you?
No.
And it's so many of us, I think, don't think about it until too late. And then it's like an uphill struggle. What's the phrase? Like sweeping water uphill for the rest of your life.
I've heard that
instead.
one before. It's funny when someone pointed out to me, man, like the most lucrative years of your life and where you're most impactful because you're the wisest and most experienced are the ones at the end. And so we need to put effort in when we're younger to make sure that we're at our peak in terms of our wisdom and our physical and our mental health when we can be the most useful to the places we work and the people we love and the communities that we serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry to hear about your mother as well.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. It's taught me something, though, and it's changed the way I look at things. And so I'll try to pull that from it.
Yeah, and make the most of the time you have with your mum as well.
For me, I've reflected on the year. I do this every year, not just because I think that's a trendy thing to do, because I think it is a trendy thing to do, but I think it's a really important thing to do is to reflect. And I encourage my clients to do a lot of reflecting, not just once a year, but continually to reflect on what we've been doing and why we've been doing and what's that impact. If I look at my year, I think the biggest takeaway is community and the value of community around you. Network, you could use that as another word. I've really found that really important, increasingly as I've built my business, to have people around me. You know, I've worked in organizations where I've had hundreds of people and been part of teams and everything else, and that's really good. And I know people might be listening who are in those teams, but I always feel you need to have team networks and communities outside of that as well. But being a solopreneur, you know, it's important for me to build a network. And what I mean by that is not just have lots of friends, because I don't have a lot of friends. I have quite a selective sort of small group of friends, but I know a lot of people, is to have people who will be there for you, who will support you, who will encourage you, who will, you know, back your ideas and really encourage you to just go for it. But also ones that will be there when things all go a bit wrong as well. And, you know, they'll cry with you. They'll just be there for you and almost not say a word and just to support you. But also those ones that I would say, which I've got close friends who will challenge you as well. Because I think sometimes we go off beam a little bit. Sometimes we get sort of caught up with our own sort of self-importance, and it's important to have people around you who sort of bring you back down to earth and perhaps challenge your thinking and your perspective can be really helpful. And I found this year, just building my business, launching my book and various other initiatives I've been doing, having a community around me, and I do the my ice bath every day, and there's a couple of three of us have created a WhatsApp group, like an accountability WhatsApp group, where we post our temperatures every day once we've been in the water, and it's quite nice because you wake up, and if you didn't feel like doing it, you feel like, well, I've got to post it, I've got to get out there and do it. And so there's an accountability to that, but also it's created a nice sort of community, and we've gone for a beer sometimes, and when you're feeling a bit low, you grab a coffee together. It's that sort of thing. And I think we need a community. So for me, I suppose I've got more and more aware and appreciative of the community, and I feel that you have to be intentional about that and building that as well.
I imagine the cold, freezing face emoji gets used a lot in that WhatsApp group.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you're so right. And I think I prefer the word community as well. I mean, I definitely do prefer the word community to the word network. Because I think network is a bit buzzwordy, isn't it? And it's a bit, I don't know, maybe that's in my head. Whereas community feels a bit more mutual and supportive. And I think that's the important element of it, whatever you want to call it. That's, as you say, that's the thing we all need. On having someone and people who challenge you as well, I often complain about that whole groupthink problem and the meeting culture in a lot of businesses. But I've also found as a solopreneur, it's really easy to get into groupthink when you're a group of one, isn't it? So having that outside perspective to say, oh, have you thought about it this way? Or what about that? Or I think that's wrong even sometimes as well. It's so valuable. Even if just because it tests your thinking. So even if you end up still doing the same thing, you're a bit more confident in that because you've stress tested, if you like.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that. That is a very good takeaway, well thought through. Thank you.
My takeaway is that Microsoft Outlook calendars are really awful. That was my main takeaway.
Oh, yeah.
And
they've changed it.
Yeah.
Mine's probably my ADHD. It's been quite a year of actually knowing, discovering and finding out. Actually, I'm neurospicy. I didn't. That's the thing. I genuinely didn't know. Yeah, no, that's been a massive thing for me, really, this year.
Yeah. Did you
everything?
So a few people I know have had similar experiences. They found out and it was a surprise to them. Everyone else was like, yeah, didn't you know? Did you have that experience as well? Is that a common thing?
I found out because someone put a post on LinkedIn saying, oh, I just got chatting to one of my favourite neurodivergent peeps. And I went, what? What?
Do you mean me?
What? Yeah, they tagged me in it. And I'm like, what?
Harsh.
Oh my God.
That's not a great way to get outed, is it? Like, jeez.
And then I just kind of, to be honest though, that happened probably last year, I think. And I just ignored it. I was like, well, look, I'm old enough. I've got this far. It's all fine. Glenn, I don't need to know. And then I started working with Vicky Midwoods. Whoop, whoop. And it was like, it's come to light. And by knowing it and embracing it, it's enriched my life. Like I get to use my brain as a superpower that it is instead of annoying.
I don't know about that.
Well, sometimes
I thought you were going to say something like...
Deb's like, what? No, you're still annoying.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just the awareness. It's the awareness of going, oh, it's your brain. It's just my brain doing that thing. That's okay. I can move on from it instead of kind of going, oh my God, the world's going to end.
Yeah, and just knowing why as well sometimes makes such a big difference.
I think it is that, isn't it? Because then you just catch yourself and go, Oh, also, biggest takeaway as well. She
didn't know.
You can't have two. You've already picked. Go on. I won't stop you.
It's gone anyway. It's fine.
Okay, cool. And Outlook. So what have they changed about Outlook calendar? I haven't noticed.
You know what? I started this year with loads of people's problems.
She had loads, 99 problems.
So, and the calendars were one. So where people had Google calendars and Microsoft calendars, and none of them were working all of a sudden, and then it turned out that I think Microsoft and Google had fallen out. So all of a sudden, Microsoft was like, "No, I'm going to make my calendars really inaccessible to absolutely everyone." And then it kind of quietened down. But the last couple of weeks, I've had people coming back about calendars.
No, we're not doing that again. So no, they did. They changed something with the API, so you couldn't integrate them as nicely as they were, and then everyone had that issue. But we get a lot of trends like that anyway.
Yeah.
And it also leads me on to another point of systems really should collaborate.
Yeah.
I feel like when you've got software that's like, no, this is us, we're not sharing the information with any other bit, you can't do any add-ons. I'm like, well, you're kind of just, isn't collaboration how the world works?
Yeah, because everyone's collaborating now.
You got to collaborate.
True.
I'm now wondering if I've hit that problem myself, because my emails are in Google, but I also use Outlook because I always have, and I'm, creature of habit sometimes. So I did have that thing, I can't remember what it's called, the sync thing that you can download from Google, and then it connects to Outlook or something. And then last month, my hard drive failed, so I ended up reinstalling Windows, building a new machine, and now I can't get that to work. It won't talk to Outlook anymore.
Side, it just doesn't. They're not working anymore.
You can still do it so that it will update, but it doesn't update immediately. It's not an automatic sync. It takes up to 24 hours. So you added a calendar last minute thing, you miss it. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's not the immediate.
Yeah.
There you go. Solving
I just gave up.
That was my takeaway. That literally stick to one calendar, peeps.
I think mine's better.
Whose fault is it then? Microsoft or Google? Microsoft, okay.
Yeah.
Google's open.
Google, you can go with Apple, you can do with all of them, but it's Microsoft that are like, I don't like you anymore, Google. We've broken up. Google was like, fine.
Yeah.
Am I bothered? Didn't even notice. Yeah. Nice.
It's coming back to expectations. Expectations has been a big thing for me this year, that people have very different expectations of what's expected of them, what's expected of what they expect of other people, and it's the contrast between the two that leads to resentment. And when there's resentment, that breaks everyone apart. And then there's lack of communication, there's covert messaging, and ultimately that leads to burnout. And that's what I'm seeing a lot. If people have very different expectations of each other but don't actually communicate it, that's where we're seeing a lot of tension. And then it's getting people clear on what they expect. And a lot of the time, they don't know what they're expecting of each other. They don't know what they're expecting of themselves. And I'm like, okay, what are your values? They don't know their values. So if you don't get clear on these things, if you're not that self-aware or grounded and know what's expected of you and what you expect of yourself, and is that aligned with what's expected of you, that's what leads to so many challenges I'm seeing lately this year. So I think that's going to be a big thing for me for 2025. There was so much of the things I was working on that I was like, okay, we need to get clear, we need to get clarity, we need to get clarity. And then clarity becomes a buzzword that people throw around. And next thing I'm like, okay, what are your values? If people are not clear on their values, and then people go, okay, I'm going to just stick values into ChatGPT and pick the first 3 that sound great or that make me sound good. I'm like, okay, maybe that's a first step. But then when I bring up what are your expectations, well, they have a lot of expectations of their company. They have a lot of expectations of their manager. They have a lot of expectations of their spouse, of their family. But they don't have many expectations of themselves. They like to ride in the back seat or ride in the passenger seat, ride shotgun and be like, you know what, someone else in the driver's seat, they're going to get me to my destination. They'll get me from A to B. But as soon as someone expects something of me, don't get ahead of yourself. And that's what I'm seeing too much. Or people just, again, waiting for the new year. You know what, things will get better in 2025. This wasn't my year. January will bring good things. And they'll sit in the back seat and get the shock of their life when January comes. It goes on to New Year's resolutions. Don't get me started on New Year's resolutions. Oh, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is someone that brings up New Year's resolutions. I'm not sure how you feel on it, but it's like, someone brings up a New Year's resolution, and at last it's like, okay, I'm going to post it on Instagram. This is what I'm going to do, and they're all pumped about it. And it's like, oh yeah, I got 10 likes on that, and then a week later, it's like, maybe that was a big audacious goal for me. Yeah, that's not going to happen. 2 weeks later, oh well, I didn't do much to towards that goal for the last 2 weeks. Maybe I'll wait till 2026. I'll wait till 2026. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one of those things, isn't it, where on expectations as well, where people don't really think about it that much unless they're kind of confronted with it, or in sort of hindsight where something's happened that they didn't expect or doesn't fit with what they expected or their values, and then suddenly it's, oh, actually that's not what I should probably think about my expectations. And I agree with you as well with New Year's resolution. Like, you're always going to wait for something before you do the thing, whatever the thing is. There's always going to be something else you can use to put that off. Yeah. Having said that, I did have a question about a New Year's resolution for leadership, which is slightly tongue-in-cheek, because I don't know. I think goal setting is important, but I think, again, it's like with the fun at work. Don't just do it once a year. Have it be realistic as well and achievable.
I think the term of the year for a lot of people is resilience. Like, we talk about resilience in a very sort of conceptual way, but for a lot of people, it was that kind of digging in and keep going, even when it gets really hard, even when you don't feel like it's working. And certainly talking to a lot of business owners and leaders, it's that sense of, what do you mean I've got to do it all again? Like, it's the relentlessness of having to keep showing up. And obviously that's a culmination of a few years that have been pretty difficult anyway. But yeah, I think the word resilience for me kind of sums up a lot of what I saw in 2024.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be a word for a while, isn't it? The way things seem to be going at the moment. But yeah, let's not get too down in the dumps for New Year. So, I mean, I think it was one of your posts recently, actually, where you were talking about, like the year that we've had. Sometimes talking about achievements at the end of the year can be quite toxic for people. And actually, it's important to remember that just still going is achievement enough. And that really struck a chord with me as well, I have to say. What would be your advice then for people in the new year who are looking to become more resilient, to build that into their teams, into their businesses, or even into themselves?
I think a lot of it is that reframe, actually, of resilience and having to keep going. Like you say, can have that sort of negative feel to it, but actually you're still here. It's still going. You're still going forward, and that it's about celebrating the smaller wins as well as those larger things. Like, there's that quote, I can't remember, and I'll probably misquote it anyway, but the quote around, you only fail at the point when you actually give up completely, when like you stop trying. And that to me is quite a powerful motivator to keep going, because it is the sense of, just as long as you continue to try, then you haven't failed. You are still making it possible for yourself to progress and have the success. And I think sometimes we take that need to keep showing up without that validation that maybe we're looking for, as a sign that things aren't working out. Whereas I would say it's really easy to miss the validation that is there for the validation that you wish was there. There's lots of times when, for not necessarily a business example here, but like a relationship one, like the couple who say, oh, he doesn't love me. And, the husband says, well, I empty the dishwasher for you. It's like we have these misinterpretations because, yes, emptying the dishwasher probably doesn't feel very much like love language, but to them it is. And I think we miss the validation, and it's easy to do. Even a like on a post, or that really resonates with me, is really lovely validation, because for that moment in time, something you said gained a little bit of power. or something you did gained a little bit of power, and you can lose that in, but I didn't have 1,000 likes, or I didn't build my following. It actually just take the wins that are there, because they keep you going and they make it feel like there is progress all the time.
Yeah, it's something, isn't it? And maybe it's part of British culture because we're quite self-deprecating, aren't we? You're minimizing your achievements because it feels uncomfortable to us to be praised sometimes, I think, at a cultural level. And obviously different individuals will have different levels of that. I used to be really bad at that, but I like to think I've got better at it. And I think, it's very easy, isn't it? Like you can always say, oh yeah, I did get that, but it wasn't this. And it's so easy to do that. You don't have to look very far. You don't have to try very hard. But I think what's really important, as you say, it's that word gratitude, isn't it? Is be grateful for what you have achieved. Don't minimize that, because it does matter. It is important. It has made an impact. Yeah. Even if only to you, that still counts.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think some of it is like a warping of the word ambition, or drive, because we get progress, but it's not enough. We should want more. We are capable of more, therefore we should go for it. And I think sometimes we can warp the validation of things that have happened because we perceive that we should be ambitious. We should want more. One sale is great, but we should want 10, and that kind of pushing ourselves to achieve more. Whereas the healthier way, I think, is to say, wow, I got that one sale. That's amazing. That proves that somebody out there is a market for what I sell. Now let me see if I can do that for 10 people. So just use that milestone of achievement rather than throw it away because it's not as big as the next one. And you see it a lot in social media, that hunger for more can really deteriorate the importance of those little moments.
Yeah, it's like the modern version of like Keeping Up with the Joneses, isn't it? But on steroids, like ultra steroids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this before as well, but that sort of fake sort of persona that's around entrepreneurs and that the hustle culture, all of that really quite toxic stuff, and it makes you compare yourself to something that's unattainable, and the people talking about it probably haven't really done it either, by the way. But
absolutely, don't get me started on hustle culture. I think the problem is there are some people for who the efforts that encapsulate hustle, the kind of looking for opportunities, kind of working out a way, figuring a way through, is the way that they will run their business. And I 100% support that. What I object to is that being shown as the only way. And this idea that if you don't want to do that, or you can't do it, or you try it but you don't get results, that somehow that's reflected on you, like you're doing it wrong. Where I'm like, no, it's just we will all find success in different ways. For some people it will be the hustle, and for those people who enjoy that, brilliant. But I think we need to have as much of a conversation about the people who are put off by that, or realise that they can't do that or don't want to do that, and then they think that that's the end, that they can't explore owning a business because, well, I'm not like that. And they're the ones that I probably particularly target to say, no, of course you can, we just do it a different way.
Yeah. I think, there's nothing wrong with working hard. And I think if you're going to be a business owner, you have to do that. Anyway, it's just, it's going to happen, or you won't be a business owner for very long. But I think it's in, like you say, it's putting that very narrow definition of what working hard looks like, putting it in that very small box, and then trying to impose that on everyone. Like, this is what you have to do. And it minimizes all the people who aren't taking that approach as well, because they're working just as hard, just in different ways, or at different times. Absolutely. Or whatever it is that suits their life, frankly. So anyway, let's not grumble about social media anymore though, because we did a lot of that in the pre-chat as well.
It's a great question, and it is the time to start reflecting. And I think the best thought really is the importance of perseverance and just moving forward, like one step in front of the other. And I think I saw this really great quote just the other day, and it really resonated about how progress is inevitable if you just keep moving forward at an incline. And I feel like that is the big takeaway from this year for me as well. We were going one direction with the business, and I was definitely feeling very dejected with just where it was going. And then I had an idea that really would have only came about because of all the steps we had taken to get there. And we pivoted, and now we're moving in a totally different direction, and it's still really hard, and I'm still really feeling dejected sometimes, but I can objectively say that we're in a better position than we were 6 months ago. And so really it's just about keep showing up, keep moving forward, one step in front of the other, and just keep heading towards your goal.
It's a good lesson. And I think, there's so many cliches around this subject, aren't there? You never fail, you either succeed or you learn. I like that one. That really helps me when I'm getting stuck with things. But you're so right. Progress is just forward momentum, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much or to what scale, as long as it's some forward motion.
Exactly. And so just take that one step today. That's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so you told me a little bit in the pre-interview about some of your plans and the changes in the business this year. I guess the other cliche, if you like, is about speed matters less than the direction you're moving in. And I think in a software environment, that's quite telling, isn't it? Because there's that whole like move fast and break things mentality. But I feel like making sure you're moving fast in the right direction, or at least moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to be fast, right? It's all good. But so I think,
I feel like a lot of the tech community, is pushing back on move fast and break things, because what if you break the wrong things? Like we need to be moving forward with intention, especially now that software is a much more mature and developed solution for so many industries. And so that thoughtfulness and intention with where you're moving is really important. And I actually think a lot of the community is moving in this direction where the right step in the right direction matters a lot more than 10 steps in the wrong direction. And so it's better to be slow, but to be sure that you're moving towards your goals.
Yeah, and that's a far more eloquent way of saying it than I just attempted. So thank you.
I'm not sure, but I definitely built on what you said.
Yeah, the move fast and break things thing, I've always felt that was like a misinterpretation of that agile mindset.
Yes.
And was maybe putting the focus on the wrong part of it, on the break things aspect of it. I think what's really like embedded it in my mind as the wrong mentality was the fact that what was the guy's name? The Titanic submarine guy. That was one of his favourite phrases, wasn't it? And we've seen the tragic result of that. So lesson learned, I think.
I think the part of that that's really important is more about experiment quickly, like learn as fast as possible. I think that's the real takeaway there, that like choose with intention, move in a direction, and then quickly decide, is this the right step? Is this the right direction? And if it's not, like quickly experiment again and keep learning as fast as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I think don't be too set in your ways or fixated on a single idea.
Exactly.
Because again, I think we've probably all been in a business where that has happened, and like despite all evidence to the contrary, everything the users and the customers are saying, we still persist with this thing because that was our idea at the beginning and that's what we want to do.
That's sunk cost fallacy. I'm definitely a huge victim of it, or not victim because obviously I'm choosing it, but I'm a huge doer of the sunk cost fallacy, and I'm trying to move away from it. So that was another big thing for me in 2024 was I think this was a big mistake as just a first-time founder of not focusing on the things that really matter for a business, and that at the end of the day is revenue as an indicator that you are solving a customer's real pain point. And I'm sure there are other types of indicators that show that you're solving a customer's pain point, but revenue is a very important one that your business can't survive without. And so it is good to optimize for it. And it's okay to completely shift what you're doing or think outside of the box in order to chase what is, at the end of the day, one of the most important indicators of a business's success.
Everyone does it. Like, I don't want to minimize it, but like the first founder experience, I think everyone has been through that, or everyone who's started a business. But it's also, and it's very difficult not to do that. And when you're doing it, even if you're not doing it for the first time, like even if you've done it 3 or 4 times, every business is different, and it can be really difficult to figure out like what are the things that matter, especially in that early stage when you just don't have the data to go to figure it out yet. And by contrast, it's also really, really easy to just fixate on that idea you started the business to do, because in your mind, it's like, well, that's what the business is here for. Of course, we're going to keep doing that, even though, whatever other data points you do have say no, it's the wrong thing. So I think it's impressive. It's something to be proud of. I think that you can recognise that and make that shift, make that pivot, make that change. So I can only applaud that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think it's really important to, going back to this concept of like learning quickly. And obviously as a first-time founder, there's so many unknown unknowns. And so you really are only going to figure it out by doing. And sometimes you have to recreate the wheel in order to know what works for you, what doesn't work for your business. But this whole conversation kind of reminds me of another big concept that I've been playing with this year, which is the concept of Ikigai, which is you need a understanding of why you are pursuing what you're pursuing so that you have that motivation at the end of those really long, low days where you're just not feeling like this is worth it. You have to have something that is telling you, why are you doing this? And why are you meant to be doing this? And so I really like the concept of Ikigai for founders or business owners in general, because I think it kind of forces you to understand if your business is in alignment with what your life's purpose is. And I don't know if you're familiar with the concept.
The concept, not the name though. That's a new one on me.
So Ikigai is a Japanese term, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it is this idea that your life's purpose is defined by 4 concepts and the interlocking part of that. And so it's your skill set. So what are you good at? Your passion. So what do you love to do? Something that the community values because they're willing to pay you for it. So like something you're able to get paid to do. And then the last one is like something that impacts the community or society in a positive way. And so it's kind of a Venn diagram of those 4 factors. And then what's at the center is your life's purpose, like your why, for why you should be doing whatever you're doing.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm going to go research that afterwards.
So that's another theme that I've been like thinking about a lot this year, and I'm hoping to keep bringing it forward into the new year.
Yeah, and I think that purpose, that knowing your why. I mean, we're quoting a certain famous author, aren't we? But it really is important though, and I think especially so for business owners, solopreneurs, founders, because when you do hit those tough times, I mean, first of all, even when things are good, like it should be like your driving reason for doing what you're doing, but it's something to hold on to when things are difficult and just remind yourself, yes, it is difficult, but it's important because.
And then one more thing, I'm like, this conversation is just like springing things to my mind, but there's this cartoon I saw earlier this year and I've been coming back to it a lot. Illustration is probably a better word, where it is someone who is like digging through a cave, and then they're like feeling a lot of motivation to just turn around and like give up. And you as the viewer can see that they're almost at the end, that if they just keep digging a little bit further, they'll be out on the other side. And I think about that a lot as a founder, because you never know how close you are to that next milestone or that next step.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lesson in there about consistency, isn't there? But then I also feel like, how does that how does that stack up against the sunk cost fallacy as
I
well?
know.
Like, where do you find the balance between those two ideas?
It's such a great point, because obviously there are certain things you have to give up, but it doesn't mean that you have to give up on the why. It just means that you need to shift directions or change strategies in a data-driven way. And so I think, like, putting all of the concepts together that we've discussed so far, it's, you have your Ikigai, you have your why for what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you have some sort of like vision or goal that is your like compass towards where you're headed. You have to keep just putting one foot in front of the other towards that compass goal. And you have to learn quickly and not be stuck on ideas just because that's where you started. Like, you have to have some sort of data point or some sort of indicator, probably only one indicator, that is just helping you decide, like, is this working or is this not working? And then you have to do different experiments to decide, are you moving in the right direction or not? And then you shouldn't give up, because you never know how close you are to that next step.
Yeah, I think there's certain aspects, aren't there, that should remain fixed. And I think probably the knowing the why is the key part of that. I think who matters as well. I think areas where you can be flexible, though, is the how. And maybe the when as well, but I think that'll vary.
Yeah, maybe the when as well. Because, like, looking at my own business, what I'm doing now wouldn't have worked 3 years ago. And so really, generative AI made a difference. The appetite in the market made a difference. There's so many factors when really matters. And so sometimes it is just about surviving until it is the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thinking back to where you first started your answer, the word that jumped into my mind, probably because someone else has already said it to me today, was resilience. So perseverance, resilience. I think it's been some trying times the last couple of years for a lot of people widely, but business owners as well. And I think it's okay to get to the end of the year and have the achievement be that you're still going.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's funny, this whole decade, right? 2020s. It's been tough around the world, and time is a weird concept. But like, starting a business is a strange concept. It's just a lot. So for anyone listening, like, stay motivated, keep going, resilience.
Using my network. And a part of me thinks I've probably always known how valuable a network is. Funny enough, I was coaching someone this morning who's looking for a new role, and she's kind of lined up all these coffees and lunches with people, friends and contacts in that sector. And this is quite senior lady, and she's quite nervous about asking. She said, I'm a good listener. That's what I do. I normally listen. I don't feel I can ask. And I'm like, of course you can, it might not be how you open the conversation, but thinking specifically about what it is the ask for help is, I think is something I was talking to her about, but also something that I also found really helpful.
Yeah, and I think that the specificness, is that a word?
Specificity.
That word that I will mispronounce. Yeah. I think that's important in both directions as well. So when you're offering help, and this was something I learned from, of all places, it was a podcast guest years ago now, and her specialism was about dealing with loss and bereavement at work. And the example she gave at the time was about, it's really easy to just say, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. But what do you do with that when someone offers it? It's like, I mean, that's too big of a problem. So it's way better to say, can I help you with, do you need me to go and pick up the shopping for you this week or something like that? So I think in this context, it's really important in that direction too. Yeah,
exactly right. So there you've got two big takeaways from 2024.
Yeah, like it. Great.
Well, this year I was able to kind of spend some more time reflecting. And I'm so grateful for that, because my takeaway really has been, you need to take some time out and really think about who has come along your path, whether it's been in your career or whether in your personal life. But you can always give gratitude. It's never too late. This year has been a year when a few people have reached out to me and just said, thank you, for taking the time to teach me something or explain something to me. And that meant so much. And I think my takeaway was I can receive, but I can also pay that forward. And so I spent quite some time reflecting and just thinking about who were my mentors, who were the people who were there when I had a pivot in my life and really gave me some good insights and suggestions, and just were great examples. And, taking the time out and just giving gratitude and saying thank you for what you've done. That was my takeaway this year, for sure.
I like it. Yeah, I think gratitude is so powerful, isn't it? Just as a mindset as much as anything.
Absolutely. And we forget. We end up somewhere and we forget how we got there. So I'm grateful for the time to think that through this year and the opportunities to reach out and just let people know.
And it's a lovely act of leadership as well, that telling people, what they've meant to you and what they've helped you with. And because I think so many of us, we sometimes accidentally help someone when we may not even realize, or we forget we've done something. And it can be such a meaningful thing when someone just phones you out of the blue and says, I just want to thank you for this or that, or the other.
And you don't even realize, I like what you said, you don't even realize that the minute you took or the process you took to help that person meant so much. And so that feedback is really great. And then it makes us do more.
And what are you most proud of in your business or your career this year?
Just proud of the fact that we've survived another year in business and we haven't got divorced yet.
Yeah, that's a nice achievement to mark. Well done.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, though, does it? In terms of those big, proud moments, I think we all decide. Someone put this on a post the other day and I was quite impressed with it. It's like, it doesn't have to be I got X amount of customers through the door, I hit a 6-figure business, I did this. Sometimes I just got through the year and that's totally fine. And we got through the year unscathed, happy, healthy. Kids are still alive.
Yeah, I feel a bit like that this week. I am struggling this week, but I think it's because I am recovering from a holiday where...
Did you know you went on holiday?
Yeah, I only went away for 2 nights.
Not mentioned it, no.
No. Well, when you have those mini breaks and it's like 2 nights away, but in your head it feels like you've just spent 6 weeks travelling. So that's what it feels like.
We're just proud of another year in business with some amazing friends along the way and some really cool adventures.
Yeah. Good.
I am most proud of the fact that I tried to do something that I love so much that the thought of doing it poorly breaks me. And I was so convinced I couldn't do it well anymore that I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to disrespect something I loved so much. And mid last year, I had been going through for about 8 months a really bad struggle with my memory and my focus and my ability to remember details. I lost 4 different sets of really good wireless headphones because I'd leave them on planes. I left 2 iPads places. My brain stopped paying attention to details and it couldn't focus. And this turned out to be connected to this is a problem, no one knows for sure. Long COVID. My last bout with COVID, I had 4, and they were all a little different. And the 4th one was actually the least physically difficult, right? I didn't have as much a sore throat or a cough or exhaustion, but it did mess with my head. I had brain fog, and it never really went away. And so finally, after not being able to read and really struggling, and honestly, my career and my life was kind of falling apart because I just couldn't keep stuff together. Went to the doctor and they said, well, these symptoms are incredibly similar to severe ADHD. And we think they were triggered by your last bout of COVID because I never really had strong ADHD symptoms before. But if you can imagine all of a sudden at the age of 46 having a really bad case of it really messed me up. And I wasn't able to execute on things. I didn't have executive functioning anymore. I was able to remember long-term things. So all of my content I could still deliver at a really high level. In fact, the fact that I had to focus more actually, I think, improved how well I delivered it. But I could not remember new stuff. And when you do 60-minute presentations without notes, the inability to focus was difficult. So the thing I am most proud of this year is right at the end of this year, I agreed to create an entirely new presentation not knowing if I could remember it. The ability to speak for 60 minutes without saying takes an incredible amount of practice. It takes even more practice to make it look like you're not trying to do that. And I lost faith about 12 months ago that I could ever create a new speech and remember it and deliver it at the quality that I am capable of. So I came to grips with the fact that I probably had 3 or 4 years left of using my existing content before it was outdated, at which point I'd have to find another career. And then I'm very proud of the fact that I took a swing at creating a new one and that it was incredibly well received and that I was able to risk really disappointing myself in order to see if I could still do this. And I did it, and I was terrified, and it was great, and I'm so thrilled with it. And I had to do it differently. And I think that the biggest thing I'm going to take away from all of that is that I had a friend who taught me something, and I didn't understand it till I had to go through it. But she fell and hit her head when she was one of Canada's top 40 under 40 young entrepreneurs, really alpha driven. And she hit her head and got a traumatic brain injury and had to spend almost a year in a dark room, unable to read, listen to anything, like just sit in a dark room because everything made her sick. And then she started to recover. But she said for the first many months, I kept wondering when I would go back to the person I was, when I would get better, when I would heal. And she said, what changed my life is when I no longer tried to get better and tried to thrive in who I was. And so what I learned from this experience is that I need to create presentations differently, and I need to use different tricks when I'm on stage that I never had to use before, but that I can learn those things. And I'm very, very proud of being willing to try. So that's a much longer answer than I wanted to give. I thought I lost my ability to do what I love and what I'm best at. And because I was so afraid I couldn't do it, and once I knew I couldn't do it, it would change my life in a way that I didn't know how I'd deal with it. So I put off finding out whether it was true or not. I was scared. In case it was true, I knew that it was going to change my life forever. So instead of finding out, I just kind of worried. And then in like 2 weeks ago, I actually changed it. And that to me is something I'm incredibly proud of. And it's also like lifting a massive weight off my shoulders, because instead of worrying every day about something I didn't know for sure was a disaster, I just allowed myself to be like, it's a disaster, but let's ignore it. And so that's probably the biggest thing. That's what I'm most proud of, man, is that I can create new stuff, but I'm not the old Drew. And I'm letting go of wanting to get back to that guy and instead embracing the differences, but the still quality that exists in the current guy, if that makes any sense.
I think you're rightfully proud of that. And yeah, wow. I mean, COVID is still kicking, isn't it?
It's I never thought of long COVID. I didn't know what it was. I honestly, man, this is what I was really afraid of. I thought it was early onset dementia. Both my parents have either Alzheimer's or dementia. Both their parents had Alzheimer's or dementia. And so what I was really afraid of is that's what I had. I had early onset dementia. And that to go and ask someone about it means that now you have it, right? Like before you might have it. But once you go and ask, then you do. And I came to realize, of course, that so many of the things we're scared of are things that aren't actually there. We create them. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and there's a lesson there as well. I mean, not to be sexist about it, but I think you did the typical man thing. Yeah. When there might be something wrong, we ignore it instead of going to the doctor.
Yeah. And it's also like the older we get, the bigger a problem that is. You know Absolutely. What I mean? Like it used to be, all right, well, I left it for 3 weeks and now it's worse. Now it's like you leave it for 3 weeks and they're cutting it off. And so like now I've started to realize when you feel something, like go get it checked out.
Yeah, definitely. It's better safe than sorry. And as in your situation, like it might turn out to be not as bad as you expected it to be, or for a different cause. And
yeah, and
honestly,
you
could have saved yourself a lot of fear in the meantime, couldn't you? So.
Bingo. And I think that fighting an unknown enemy is always scarier than fighting one that's known, even if what it's known for is being scary. A lot of people call me when they get diagnosed as bipolar because they know that I've talked about that. And they're always sort of really upset. And I can understand that. But what I don't understand is that the symptoms that you've had were still there even before you knew what it was. So you're in no way worse off now. Everything's the same. It's just now you know better. And so often when people call me and say, I was just diagnosed bipolar, I do an odd thing and say, congratulations. Not that you're bipolar, but because now you know. And there's something powerful in that. And the most powerful thing is now there's other people that you can turn to and say, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. And I'll tell you, any of us who go through this stuff, we see it almost as an obligation to turn around and try to help the people who are dealing with it themselves for the first time. Or we should anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the devil you know, I suppose, isn't it?
When it has a name, you can understand how to fight it. Otherwise, if we push the things that we're afraid of into the dark so that we can't see them, they just wait for us in the dark. And what on earth isn't scarier in the dark? Like, well, no, actually raves are scarier when the lights come on, but for the most part, things are less scary in the dark. But like not bars at 2:30 a.m. when the lights come on, they're terrifying, but otherwise, usually light makes things better.
Well, this one is an easier one for me this year.
Oh, okay.
Normally it would be trying to think it through, but it is the launch of my book. I spent the whole, well, pretty much, I don't know if this goes on camera or not, but, launching this year, and started it last November and then launched it in September, and just been, the whole process has been amazing for me. And I think sometimes in life, the process is underrated. We get so caught up with outcomes and objectives and goals, and they can be important. And obviously I had an outcome to launch it in September, clearly. But actually the more important part was the process that I went through of writing about, how to build resilient teams, reflecting on my own practice as a coach and my clients I've worked with, reflecting on my own leadership, interviewing 30 odd leaders to sort of bring that together as well. So not only did I learned a lot through this process, but I learned about me, and it honed my skills a lot this year in terms of really understanding what does really make a resilient team and how do I help develop that, and how can I help organizations and teams do that, and to really sort of dig into that. And so for me, that's been a really great process, but I'm really proud of obviously putting it all together, creating a book that people have really been positive about it, in terms of reading it along the way, in terms of the journey to get into launching it. But even since then, having people come up to you and talk back to you things that they read about it and thinking, oh, did I really say that in that? I'm sure I did. I can't remember exactly. And they're coming out with stories, and it's really nice. And then just the whole, the launch and everything else, and people talking about community. I had a community around me who were supportive and encouraging, and that was really quite nice. I felt like a bit of celebrity for the day, for the night, which was quite nice. But yeah, it's probably and it's culminated in my 7 years of working as a coach, and 20 years before that as a leader, but then also bringing together, my master's degree in psychology I've done recently, and all my sort of podcasting, and just distilling it all together into a book, and offering to help people to build those resilient teams. So yeah, that's been my proudest moment.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, not many people write books, I think, or at least not to that level. So yeah, I mean, you're right to be proud of it, 100%. Another great lesson in that story as well about the process of it. And it reminded me of that cliche about it being about the journey, not the destination. I mean, especially when you're doing it by yourself as a business owner. But also, I think it's true of anything, isn't it? Is if you're not enjoying that process, most of the time is spent on that process, the day-to-day stuff. Mm. And even when you succeed beyond your wildest dreams, that moment of success of the thing being achieved and done is quite fleeting. It can be. So if you can't also enjoy everything before that, I don't want to say you're wasting your life, but like you're not getting as much out of it as you might. And whatever that achievement ends up being, if you didn't enjoy the process of getting there, was it really the best thing to spend your time on? There's a commentary about career management there, probably, but
Well, yeah, and I think it is about enjoying the journey. And it does sound very twee and sort of cliche, but I think it's really important to, and that comes back to being in the moment, doesn't it? And living a bit more in the moment in life rather than going a year ahead, 2 years ahead, or whatever it is your plan is, and focus on the outcomes. And that's important. And I think that as you do enjoy that beforehand as well as achieving it, as you say, because it is fleeting, completely fleeting. And I talk a lot with my clients when I take them through, whether it's individual or teams, and I say to them, as much as we've got some outcomes here today that I've been asked to sort of deliver through what you've asked me to do, let's work through this process, because there'll be far more will come out of the process of you being together as a team, or just discovering a bit more about yourself as an individual, and actually we'll do probably more than the outcomes because of the process. And I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
I think just how our business has evolved and how we have grown as people.
Yeah.
And just
it's been a year. It's been a big year of growth for both of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And especially the business and growing up. The business is growing up.
We are.
Believe it or not. And
you two haven't. The business is.
We're not growing up, but Stebbing
Yeah, just checking.
Yeah, we are. We've got the new logo. Thank you, Daniel Moore. We're in the process of updating our website.
Yeah.
I'm like, should I be telling them this? Is this one of those things where I'm like, oh, don't give the plot away?
I don't think anyone cares that much.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you all do. But
I do. No, I've been working with Dan as well, actually, and so we have a brand relaunch as well tomorrow. In fact,
tomorrow.
I say tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
It's the 31st today, right? So it's tomorrow.
I'm like, what a random day to do it on.
Yeah. Just doing it on a Saturday, the middle of December.
Oh well, that's very exciting.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah. What about yours? When's the big
we're
day?
trying to launch the logo.
Our website's going to also be live tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's exciting.
Well, sometime around tomorrow.
Right?
Yeah. Tomorrow's Saturday.
Right. Just around in circles, man.
It's tomorrow in inverted commas. Yeah.
Okay. Again, this is why Debbie's the leader.
I'm actually checking what day it will be.
If only we had a calendar.
It's a Wednesday. It'll be a Wednesday this year first.
Oh,
So it's Tuesday today, I think. Probably. Yeah. I think we're straining that a bit now, aren't we? Let's move on.
Yeah. Anyway, so really excited about your brand relaunch and our website, and we've already done the logo. So now we're getting the new merch and
and just pivoting where we need to be for growth next year.
Yeah.
Nice. I do like the new logo as well. I have seen it around already. So
yeah, thank you. See, it's us. It's going up. Stebbington 2.0.
Yeah, excellent.
I think exactly what we've been talking about, just being able to iterate quickly and move towards the indicators that really matter. And I'm hoping to just double down on that in 2025. So I'm proud of what we built. I'm proud of the journey we've taken. And I'm proud that I'm still taking that one step forward every day.
Yeah. And rightly so, I think. Yeah.
At the end of 2024, in the autumn of 2024, I did something that I'd been thinking of for quite a while and hadn't quite got around to doing. So I'm trying to work with more organisations rather than individuals. And I thought, what is it I could do from a marketing point of view that would be more appealing to them rather than some of the things I do that would be more appealing to individuals? And so I decided to do a survey of smaller professional services firms. That's the sector I work in. So ask them various questions about their talent challenges and whether they've thought about coaching, which is what I do, to help them in that. And so I put a survey together and I put it out there thinking, I really hope somebody fills it in. Just one person, please. But actually got a really good response rate. And then on the back of that, did some follow-up interviews with some of the people who responded. And then I am writing a report on that, which I finished yesterday. It now needs to be designed and everything, so it won't be out until January. And hopefully, so next year, hopefully we'll be doing some roundtables to talk about it. So I'm proud of it because it was something that I thought would be a good idea, but it's that putting yourself out there and thinking, is anyone going to engage with this? So yes, that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, it's always, I don't know, it's kind of that obstacle in your own mind, isn't it, when you're doing something like that, especially when it's something new and you're just like, oh, is anyone going to like it? I'm scared, I don't want to do it.
Exactly what I talk to my clients about, but
yeah,
when it's applying it to myself. So yes, so I'm really glad I did it. It's already led to a couple of potential pieces of work even before the report coming out as well. And in fact, I got so much information that as well as the original report, I've got I'll do a second paper later on in the year next year about how to get started with coaching in your organisation if you've not done it before. Because I think what I learned from that I didn't know before was a lot of particularly smaller firms that don't do this kind of thing just didn't really know what executive coaching was.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well done. Yeah, and I'm pleased it's working out as well.
I had been working, like we talked about this year, about 25 years in global development, and always for organizations, right, with the most vulnerable communities in Africa, Latin America, mainly with U.S. government aid funds, along with partnerships with private sector, local communities. And I found myself this year saying, okay, it's time for a pivot. And I pivoted this year into entrepreneurship, into putting together a company, Nexus, to help raise more impact for more organizations by taking, lessons learned and processes I built and helping others. And it was not an easy pivot, not an easy path. But what I'm proud of is that I've stuck to it. Trying to get a business up and started when you're used to being a full-time employee, it's very difficult. And you have to be patient, okay, which is something I'm really learning. And you have to believe. You just have to do the steps and really believe that there are others there that will help you and you'll build it as you need to. And so I'm proud that, got the business up and going and keep moving forward and keep finding absolutely wonderful clients and connections to talk to. So I wasn't sure if I could take that 25 years and consolidate it into kind of all my lessons learned and what I could give back to many different companies instead of just the ones I was working for. And I did it. Not without help. I had help, but I did it.
Yeah, well done. It is one of the most difficult things you can do, I think, especially when you've had a long career as an employee and working in that kind of organisation you worked in as well. If you've not had much exposure to like the SME small business environment, right. It can be quite a jarring transition. Let's put it that way.
It's a mindset shift, right?
You have to
think differently.
Absolutely. And I think, paradoxically, it requires a pretty high level of self-confidence to back yourself to do it. But also, you'll encounter massive imposter syndrome almost immediately. And that's kind of a weird paradox of those two things going together.
Well, it's true, though. It is. It's true because you start questioning, and that's when the doubt comes in. Can I really do this? Can I sell? Right? You never had to sell before. You never had to sell your products or your services or explain why you want to buy them. And that was probably the hardest part for me was promoting myself. Yeah, promoting myself and then selling because it was like, do you want to sell impact? Well, no, but you want to raise impact. So I think it was when I switched sort of semantics of, okay, am I really selling or am I offering support and helping to raise impact? And I think that helped me. Definitely. It was that mindset shift. But I definitely started with oh my gosh, how am I going to sell myself?
Yeah, and it can be really uncomfortable, especially if you don't have any background in sales. So, I think we're similar in that. I had always been at the farthest opposite end of the business to sales in all of my previous career.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when you're in a business of one by yourself, there's no one else to do it. So you have to, you got to get comfortable with it really quickly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm still working on it, to be honest, after 5 years. But
thank you for sharing that, because I'm going to remember that through my 5 years and feel okay. So
yeah,
you know what? It's making progress, and it's being of service to people, and I think that's what's the most important. And then your business takes word of mouth, right? But if you can be of service and you can provide lessons learned and help people, everyone will come back.
And I think it's very similar to leadership in that respect. It is putting that service mindset first, and not making it about the bottom line or closing the deal or
Right.
But then I think sales is always evolving, isn't it?
I don't think we should have a KPI of losing sales. I think we should have a KPI of making connections and letting people know opportunities that exist for them. How about that KPI?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I think that goes hand in hand with how successful you'll be at doing it as well, because most of us as humans, we can sniff out when someone's just in it because they want to close the deal, they want the commission or the bottom line, whatever it is. Whereas if they're people like you, I hope like me, we're not trying to sell you a solution to improve our revenue. We're trying to help, support, increase impact, whatever that might be.
Right.
And then the money is just the way that we can afford to do that.
Exactly. But it's very true. And I think that it's putting that passion at the center. That, you asked me, what was I most proud of for this year? It was being able to figure out to put that passion at the center. Because then I was able to move forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So put your passion at the center of what you want to help people achieve. And that in itself will help you keep moving forward. Right. It's when you do put that revenue bottom line in front of you, then it's imposter syndrome. It's scary. And then you question, is this really worth it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to have that guiding light, haven't you, that makes everything else make sense.
Agreed. Completely. Even if you are in sales.
Yeah, look.
You got to believe in what you're selling.
Of course. Yeah. And again, it comes through if you don't. I mean, not to talk sales down. I mean, I've massive respect for people who are great at doing that, because it is a difficult skill to master, and it's a difficult role to do because people tend to be very suspicious of it.
But it's a role that's needed in many of our industries. So
yeah, I mean, in every private entity, I would suggest, because it doesn't work otherwise, does it?
That's right. Yeah.
How do you think you'll do things differently next year, or what's your top advice for 2025?
We do suffer from shiny magpie, shiny object syndrome. So I think our challenge is maintaining, actually, and just continue. I can see 2025 probably clearer in my head than some of our previous years, especially that 2-year period where we were listening to the noise. And so maintain, which we find tricky at times because we like excitement. So
yeah, nice. That's more or less what I was expecting you to say. But yeah, that's good.
Are we that much of an open book?
Yeah.
What I am going to continue to do is I'm just going to continue to put myself in places where I'm learning and where I'm engaging with people doing really, really cool things in the world. And that's what I want to do. That's how I want to spend my time. That's where I want to play. That's where my energy is. And so similar to kind of the previous answer, but that's my advice for myself and for others. Are you surrounding yourself with people who take you to the next level? Are you engaging in content that is taking you to the next level? And are you engaging in activities that turn you on, that get you excited, that kind of make your heart sing? And I think that's a great way to live life. Now, we might not be able to do all of those, but are there a couple ways we're moving the needle and spending a little more of our time in some of those places? So that's how I think about 2025 for me. And I hope,
I think that's
right.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anyone. Actually, it's being more mindful of where you spend your attention, your thought. Yeah, I like that. Scott, Happy New Year. Wish you all the best for 2025. Thank you for being with us again for the third time this year.
I appreciate the opportunity, sir. I really do. Thanks for all you're doing. And I look forward to watching your adventures in 2025. And I'm sure we'll chat again.
The biggest way it's going to change the way I do things is I am looking for reasons and ways to say yes. And obviously, when you travel as much as I do, when you've got a long distance relationship, when you're always balancing equity and fairness amongst clients, I realize how much of my career was spent being like, I think I have to say no to that. And there's so much power in the word no. It's such a self-respectful thing to say. No carries so much self-respect with it. But I realized, I think what I was doing is always trying to find a reason to say no to things. And the biggest change it'll make is I'm going to have to try to find a reason to say yes, because it's so easy to find the reason when you look for it. This will be a lot of travel, or I'm traveling the week before. I should probably say no. Why should I say yes? That's the biggest thing. And I should say yes because this is a group of 200 people who I have this opportunity to share ideas that impact people. And not everybody gets to do that. And that's an unbelievable gift that I've been given. Not like, oh, I have a gift of to do it, like the talent, but I mean like the gift of having that experience. And to say no, why on earth would I stay home on a day where I can make an impact, even if it means a little extra travel? And, you have to stay on top of what's good for you and not burn yourself out. The biggest change for me is I will always look for a way to say yes now instead of asking, should I say no? Because if you ask, should I say no, you'll find a reason to answer that in the affirmative, and then you'll find a reason to say it. So that's it, is that I don't know how much time I have left. You should say yes to this because who knows if we'll get a chance to do it again. That's the big change for me.
I like that. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, you're so right. It's so easy to find a reason to say no. Like most of us, you don't have to try very hard even.
No.
Just for that, that word in the email was spelled slightly differently, so it's a no from me, sorry. Just even silly stuff like that.
You get stuff like that, eh? We're like, they showed up 2 minutes late on Zoom. I'm like, how many times have you tried to click and connect on Zoom and it just doesn't work? Or
I was doing
they were late
again.
They were late for the meeting. I'm like, that's because you put the meeting on Teams and Teams doesn't work. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Microsoft is coming after both of us now. So
yeah, I'm okay with it. Teams is not my favorite.
Well, not too differently, weirdly.
Oh.
I mean,
controversial answer. Yeah.
Controversial. And for me, it's about probably amplifying a little bit of what I've done. And it's what I started about talking about community and network and building that is amplifying that and putting that in place. And, and as you say, that's a two-way thing. It's not just what I get, it's what I can give to other people and contribute. And that's important as well. So I'm going to continue to build that as well. And with that comes, my business is all about people. And so, I've also learned this year, well, I've known it for a while, but it's just become more obvious about just connecting with people, getting to know people, building relationships with people, understanding people, and just being in the flow with people a little bit more like that, and looking for opportunities to help people. And yes, sometimes that can lead to work, but sometimes it might be me signposting to somebody else, a referral. It might be giving advice. There's a whole host of stuff, and start to do more of that. And I've, as much as, I get bombarded with how to, grow my business, scale my business, how to, automate my business and put a process in place, all these sort of things. And in some contexts, they work really well in certain businesses, but I'm a people business and I work with people, help people to change, deliver, create things and create team cohesion. And that's not all done by a slick AI automated process. It's done by an interaction of people. And I think I've just want to get more and more in that approach in all that I do, and just probably spend more time with people and just have those deeper conversations and deeper relationships, and just making sure that all I do is always aligned to my purpose of my business, of me, and making sure that is my guiding light, really. So that's probably what I'm almost doubling down on those areas. Nothing too different, but just being probably a little bit more open-minded and seeing more and more of the possibilities that could happen.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. It's a gotcha question to an extent, isn't it? I'll admit. But sometimes doing things differently isn't the answer, is it? If what you're already doing is working. Just do more of that.
We've obviously had our end of year meeting and it went really well, and we've got lots of plans and put together a nice strategy that we are going to implement.
Yeah.
Very mysterious. Cool.
I think for next year, we're kind of taking on the larger businesses and kind of more consultancy sort of side, just helping them become more efficient, really. Utilising systems and software correctly.
Yes, making them nice and streamlined, efficient and happy.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds exciting. Yeah.
That was the most jargon we've ever spoken in like that.
It was, yeah. It put me off a bit, actually.
This is what's to come for 2025.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've not mentioned your podcast either.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like you should, because I really enjoyed it so far.
Well, the second episode has just been released.
Yeah, it was released a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. So it was good.
Yeah, it was good.
So
we've loved doing it, actually. We've started working with a studio called Aura Elite, and then we sort of go in and chat, and I really, really enjoyed creating it. So hopefully that will grow a little bit in the new year.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
It would be. We might have guests one day, in which case we'd invite you on, of course. But at the moment, we're just relishing in the fact that we've got cameras and microphones.
Yeah,
we just get to chat.
Well, if you need a case study of how not to do systems and automation, I'll be there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll take that, yeah. Will we do a kind of like, do you remember that program where it's like, do up the room?
Changing room.
Yes! Let's be changing systems.
Changing systems. You heard it here first.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's going to be our program.
I mean, that sounds like a podcast of its own, so you're going to have two before you know it.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like that might actually become a TV series.
I feel that'll be on Netflix.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Netflix?
Yeah, but maybe I feel like that's we'll start at 2025 and 2026.
That'll be when we go on to Netflix. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So you'll be going into other people's businesses with clipboards and a
and
building crew or something.
And we'll make people like hide when they come back in.
And then open their computer screen like
We don't really understand what's going on, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the reveal.
Yeah.
And it'll be like before and after pictures of his spreadsheet system.
And the spreadsheet would be like all black and white, and there'd be that horrible music like, meh, and then they'd be like that.
And like steam coming out of the laptops and things.
Yeah.
And hamsters on
And all
wheels.
staff crying in the corners and stuff.
And there's papers stacked up.
Just rocking.
I just want to read an email.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'll look forward to that. Yeah. Well, I think we got loads of little trade secrets out of you there already. So yeah, that's good. Lots there.
Trade secrets or insights to Steppington's mind.
That's where they all start. It's all the good plans. They all start like this.
Do they? Okay. I'll take your word for it.
My focus for 25 is expanding. So a lot of my work involves supporting other people's businesses. It's what I do, right? So a lot of my focus has been on kind of stabilizing other people's businesses, getting them ready for growth. And what I realized as we kind of came to the end of 24 is I haven't really done the same on my own. And there's a lot of potential. And what I've done as I've created my company is kind of plugged all these little flags in the ground to go, oh, that could get bigger and that could do something and that could, that has potential. But I haven't really had a chance to explore that. So 2025 for me is kind of looking at some of those in more detail and trying to create business that actually works for more people, helps me get out to more people, helps me kind of increase the impact that my work has, and just starting to, take it out of just me and into a space that's bigger and a bit more bolder. Very much kind of taking my own medicine. I'm sure my clients are listening to me at the moment going, that's exactly what you tell us to do.
Yeah. That's exciting though. It's quite often the way, actually, particularly with service first kind of focused entrepreneurs like you. I think maybe like me, but I wouldn't want to put that mantle on myself. But we're so focused on helping others that we forget to look after ourselves sometimes. I think that's true of a lot of leaders as well, not just entrepreneurs. But it's an important lesson there, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. I think, there's obviously the, put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. And
yep.
I think we all have a tendency to forget about that. But I think for me, the framing that works better is I can't help other people if I don't help myself. If I need to kind of build a bigger boat. And I think for me, that feels more comfortable thinking of growing my business as making more space for people than maybe more of a, hit 7 figures or hit 8 figures. I just trust that if that's going to happen, that will be a consequence of creating the business that I've got in my head.
Yeah, I think that's the way I look at it as well. Like, I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to help people. But in order to help people, I have to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not mercenary. It's just necessary, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's the world we live in.
And it has value. I think, when any job you have, if you get paid a salary from a company, it's because the company has deemed what you do necessary and valuable to it in the objective, in the delivery of its goals. And we would never go to a job and say, don't pay us. We do it for the love of it. We don't. The ideal is that we find a job that matches some of our personal goals in terms of career progression or development, personal development. And we happen to be able to do that within our job frame. For some people, they find fulfillment outside their job. So their job is just a means to get paid. And then they go and do fun stuff elsewhere and they get their joy and fulfillment from other places. I think business ownership is that slight evolution of that, where I don't think you start a business if you don't on some level want to do something that is fulfilling, because it is so hard. Like, why would you run a business that you're not getting anything from other than getting paid? It's just get a job. If you're going to think like that.
Yeah, I think that, there's a very small number of people who start businesses because they think it's going to make them a millionaire overnight and things like that. And then it's all about the exit. I feel like that's the wrong reason to start a company though. And also, if that's the only reason you're starting a business, then it's probably not going to work out the way you think.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, the market is, I think, probably more intelligent than that. So when somebody, most people, when they interact with businesses, know that you want their money. Like, they know that there is a transaction going to happen in their near future, but the treatment of them and the relationship and the interaction between them and the business, I think, is still important to a lot of people. If they think that you're just taking their money and they don't matter, I think people do pick up on them. And that's showing, how you market to people, how you talk about your customer base. I'm old enough to remember Gerard Ratner, demolishing his brand because he made a comment about the type of people who bought his jewellery. It doesn't take much for people to go, this business doesn't have anything, doesn't value me as a customer. And I think the people who genuinely think that it's just a numbers game and they can just put a business together and spit out this number at the end, fail to recognise that no matter what you sell, you're selling to a person somewhere, and that person has to believe in what you sell as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of business owner is definitely the exception, though. I think you're right. The vast majority, they're doing it either because they like us and they want to help someone, or they passionately believe in whatever the service or product is, or a lot of times there's a bit of technology there that they've been working with, or it was their idea, and they really, really care about it and they want to make that work.
Yeah.
And all of those things have one thing in common, which is the money is secondary.
Yeah. Well, just the trust that if what you have has value, that people will pay for it. And I think that's where, when you have that attitude of, I do this for free if I could, then it's a very subtle way of telling people that you're not sure of the value that you offer. Where actually, I think service-based businesses, your value is in your knowledge, in your assessment of situations, and it's not a bad thing to show your worth. I in fact, this week I had this conversation about should service-based industries do kind of free consultation calls or discovery calls. The old perennial conversation comes up. And my take is always the same. Like, if you have value, don't get penalised by showing that value as a freebie, because they're getting the value and not having to pay for it, and then you're left with nothing.
Yeah, I admit I've struggled with that one myself. I've gone back and forth a million times, probably. I'm still not sure which way to go, but yeah, you're probably right. I'm leaning that way again at the moment.
Yeah, to me, it's all about having faith in your ability to support people. If you give advice, for example, one piece of advice that you can give in 5 minutes can drastically change someone's business. Like, and that's because your subject matter, you've had experience of it, you know your stuff. And yet you would be penalised if you gave that away in a free session. They're still getting the value, but you've given it away for free. And whereas if you had to develop your knowledge, so it takes you longer, so it would take an hours long consultation meeting to actually get the answer at the end of it, they're getting paid because it's a longer time. We tend to get ourselves tied in knots because of the time element rather than the value element. If you're better at your job, you can get results quicker. So you get penalised for being good, and that to me doesn't make sense.
No, me neither. And it's something I've occasionally grumbled about as well from an employee context too, because this equating time to money. I mean, it's so old fashioned, isn't it? And it's just, and yet it's still, it's the norm.
Yeah.
So again, like the employee who really knows their stuff, who's been doing it for 5-10 years, has loads of qualifications, loads of expertise, they've been doing the job, and they can get whatever the output is done in like an hour, versus someone who's hired into the same job and takes all day to do that same output because they don't have any of those things, and yet they're both paid the same.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but they're not the same.
Yeah. Or the person who knows how to do it just refuses to, because they know that they can get away with doing very little and they'll still be paid at the end.
Yeah. And that's what happens as a result, isn't it? If you value that, if you value the time instead of the speed or the output or the quality, then that's what people will do, because why should they do anything else?
Yep. Presenteeism is the biggest for me, the biggest damage to productivity, because I've seen people in offices for my entire career do very little at their desk for 10 hours a day, and get rewarded for it because the manager could see them, and it's never been about the quality of the work or the output, just the fact that they were there when the boss went home. And that somehow distinguished them out as someone who worked hard, in inverted commas. And in direct comparison, you have, say, a woman coming back from maternity leave who now has to fit her work around childcare, who sits at a desk and does a very full, solid 6 hours work, no distractions, eats at her desk, gets her head down. But because she has to leave that little bit earlier, the perception is, oh, she's not working as hard. And it's not about working as hard if you're getting the results. But yeah, we are talking about a thing aimed at a very large wedge here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is either without just completely retraining and replacing brains of managers, to be honest, or that type of manager anyway.
Just training. We don't train line managers anymore. And
anymore? Did we ever?
Pretended to.
Yeah.
There was definitely more. I remember, so in 2009, just after the financial crisis, I was doing some outplacement consulting for people who were made redundant from the financial services companies and were looking to redeploy. And the amount of people I spoke to who their CV said team leader, line manager, head of, and when you'd say, what kind of role do you want to go looking for next? They're like, well, what I did before, but maybe without the line manager bit, maybe without the team leader bit. And we treat line management and people management as a side of the desk activity. So we get people who don't want to do it, and then we wonder why we get bad results. So if you have, and I've argued this for a long, long time, if we had more of an org design that had specifically people managers to manage the people rather than based on workload or function, and their role was solely to make sure that everybody else could do their job to the best of their abilities and be there for them, it would be far more productive than making someone head of or team leader who doesn't want to do it and who then it neglects the rest of the team, and productivity the whole lot goes down.
Yeah, I did once in a previous organisation try to implement something like that as like a matrix thing, because there were the specialist leaders as well who understood and needed to what the work of everyone that they were leading were doing. But then also those people usually don't want to be people managers.
Yeah.
So they quite happily be the expert on the tech and make sure that's being implemented in the way that it needs to be. But they didn't want to deal with the people stuff. So we briefly, and this was a very short-lived attempt, I have to say. It fell at the first hurdle spectacularly, face first. So we tried to do this matrix thing where each person would have basically two managers or two leaders, one for the technical part of their role and one for the people stuff. And the problem that killed it was, whilst those specialist leaders didn't necessarily want to be doing the people management, they also didn't want the perceived loss of status of not being able to do it. And that is a real problem. I never found a solution.
Completely. I think it's slowly changing. I think corporates are bringing in the idea of an IC more, an individual contributor, where there is a career path that is available without having to take managerial responsibilities.
And
that's only really happened in the last 3 or 4 years. But that is the sticking point. If I want to earn more money or I want to get promotion, the only option I had was to become a line manager. It feels like a compromise. It feels like, well, to get what I want personally, I've got to do this thing that I don't really want to do, but that's what I need to get done. Whereas now that status can be created as an individual contributor, and you're recognised that level for your seniority in technical ability and knowledge, rather than just because you have a reporting line, I think we're starting to see a shift away from those managers who really shouldn't be managers, feeling like that was their only recourse.
Yeah, I hope so, because I think workplaces have been crying out for that for decades.
Definitely. Definitely.
And I mean, there's very few and far between, isn't it? There's people who, well, like me actually, who I didn't really want to be a manager. I wasn't given a choice. It's like, do you want more money? If you do, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And it turned out actually once I was doing it, I did quite enjoy it, so it was okay in the end. But I think that's rare.
I don't know. I mean, I am one of in the pre-chat we were talking about this. I am one of those people that will kind of leading a void. So when there's a team and people are unsure, I'm quite happy to step into that. Well, come on then, let's sort it out. And um, I I think some of that just comes from having worked in teams for the majority of my career. I was working in like data centers, so if there was a problem, everyone had to try and resolve it and fix it. But in that dynamic, you see that it is helpful to have someone who everyone can just rely on a little bit for having the conversations they don't want to have, or talking to the person that's a little bit scary, right? Because that's definitely what happens in technology. We had a particular account owner who nobody liked speaking to, so they were like, "Lee, well, will you do it? Will you do it?" I was like, "Yeah, of course," and I think that kind of more sort of natural leadership was something that I really did enjoy. And so when I was given the ability to have a team, I took my responsibility toward that team really seriously. And I see line management and that kind of role as providing air cover. Like you're not there to uh, make sure that the bosses are happy. You're there to make sure that your team has what it needs to be able to get things done and to stave off any criticism or anything coming from anywhere else, whether it's above or from other teams, that gets in the way of them performing. So, and I relished that role because my team always delivered, because they recognized that I was taking the heat a lot of the time for them. And they were like, yeah, because you're allowing us to work in our best way. And I loved it. I found it incredibly infuriating dealing with other managers who didn't agree. And I'm pretty sure I didn't make too many friends in my peers and above, but I didn't consider that to be what I needed to do. I needed to make sure that the work got done and that those people recognized that they had value and it was appreciated. And, I did that, I'm pretty confidently saying.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Yeah, definitely.
I hope learn faster, like move away from that sunk cost fallacy quicker and not feel like I have to stick with what I'm doing just because that's what in my head seems like the right thing to do, because it probably isn't. Like I should have other external factors helping me decide what is the right direction.
So I've been just recently, so just in the last month or so, I've been working with a business coach actually, which I've never done before, but I thought I'd give it a go, and it's been brilliant. And I think what that's helped me to realise is that I probably try and do lots of things not particularly well. Well, not that's probably doing myself a disservice.
I'm sure it is.
Things fairly well, rather than a few things brilliantly, and that might be in products and services. But for me, it's also a little bit in marketing and how I go about finding my clients and that kind of thing. And so, for me, my main sort of thing I want to do differently is actually to stop doing some things, which I actually find quite hard because I think you get a bit of FOMO. So if you think if I stop doing something, will my business collapse around my ears type thing? There's a bit of a fear thing there. But I'm also at the moment reading. This is coincidental, but I'm reading a book called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman, I think his name is. But what he talks about is the fact that a lot of books around productivity and time management are always about how you can do more in less time. But he says we're missing a trick, and really we should just be doing less. But what it is we do should be the things that really matter. And a lot of that is about letting go of things. But there's quite a lot of an emotional side to that as well, because of FOMO and various other things that we feel we should be doing. I've not finished the book yet, but I'm sure there's probably a lot more for me to learn out of that, and it'll help me. So I think the main thing is deciding, being quite intentional about what I am going to do, and therefore what I'm not going to do, and then being brave enough to stop the things that I've decided that I am not going to do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that book doesn't have a surprise ending that completely changes that advice.
No, I don't think so. It's quite philosophical.
Okay.
So,
sounds good.
It's practical, but it's not always the easiest to read.
I think that whole letting go of jobs thing, I feel like it's sort of the blessing and the curse of being a solopreneur, isn't it? Because
yes,
sometimes you feel like you have to do everything, or at least you have to know how everything works, but also you can't do everything. So I struggle with it as well, to be honest. Like, there's things where I know there's people out there who could do it way better than me, but also I'm still doing it myself.
Yeah, and so I already have a brilliant VA, so Kira, she's great, she does a lot for me. But there is a question for me going into next year about, do I pay someone else at like a different level of investment to do some of this, which again is really scary. But yes, that's something I've got to think about in the next couple of weeks, really. That's my New Year and Christmas pondering.
Yeah. I mean, it is scary. I mean, especially like the investment and the time investment sometimes as well. In the short term, it's not a time saver, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The money side of it is scary. Like, if money were no object, then I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
But well, best of luck figuring that out. Let me know if you find an easy answer, because I'd love to hear it.
I am going to ensure I take time to connect and build those relationships with others more than I have in the past. Because, we're told this all the time, but I'm not sure how much we take it to heart, which is your business will grow faster and better, right? With the right connections and relationships at the table. And if you're just figuring out, okay, got to get a client, got to get money in the door, got to do, it'll give you short-term success, but it will not give you long-term success. And so 2025 is my year of, I want to go to conferences. I want to be speaking free of charge, providing as much, lessons learned and information I can, letting people know I'm out there, letting them know, Nexus is available to support them in raising their impact and whatever in terms they need to work through to get there. And just really making myself be accountable. This is the thing, accountable to building up, true relationships and connections, because it really does make it makes the difference.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think it's exactly like you say. Like, and it comes up time and time again as well when I occasionally interview like sales professionals. The long-term relationship is the key. Every business owner at some point during their life in business will have this issue of, we need short-term revenue.
And understood.
That's also unavoidable.
Absolutely. But you have to make time for the long term, or you're in a cycle of short term, and it will burn you out before you get started. Yeah. So,
and I think the most important thing as well that I would add is, yes, we're all going to have that short term need on occasion, but it should never come at the expense of the long term relationships.
Agreed.
Because it's so easy to do, especially when we've got bills to pay and we need to cover the mortgage that month, and and it's a very human problem, and we've all done it, and we probably all will do it.
Right. Well,
but
we have
that would be my warning.
We have responsibilities, but I think why that came to me as something most important for 2025 as well is that it's that switch from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. And it's, I had my job inside, a social impact organization. Someone else made sure, like there were those relationships or whatnot happening. Well, as a small business, you've got to figure out how to start building that from day one. And I think that's one of the best advices that I've been given. And I know that through those reach outs, I get better in my business because people share things with me.
Absolutely.
They share things that I can use, and it not just mindset. I mean, it's providers, for different things I need for the business, or ways of looking at things, or how to structure pricing, or just all these things that I didn't realize that when I went into it, I thought, okay, maybe a client, but at the end of the day, I kind of got more. I got consultancy basically of how to run my business better. So you just never know what you're going to get when you reach out to some amazing people out there.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing, isn't it? It becomes almost like a community, doesn't it? And you're all learning things from each other.
Yes.
And most small business owners, I mean, I've never, I say never, it's maybe like one or two that I've met who weren't interested in helping others. And I think that's why most of us get into this, is to help people in whatever specialism that is. But it's not restricted to that specialism. Like if I've learned something through having to do it that would help someone else or another business owner, I will absolutely share that if I can.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I've had so many people just say, thank you for sharing what you shared. And I said, absolutely. Like I wouldn't think of not sharing that. But yet they tell me there are people who will just decide they don't want to take the time to share, right? Or maybe you'll become my competitor. But I've never thought that way. It's just not in me to think that way.
Which is a good thing, because I don't think we can afford to think like that in this day and age. I think
I get too much from other people to hold my knowledge hostage.
Well, that's it.
Right?
I mean, also, two other things. I mean, one, if you become that sort of person who won't help others, then no one's going to help you when you need it.
That's right.
So, it is reciprocal.
Yep.
And the other thing, I mean, the bit about competition, I don't know. I think that the global marketplace is so massive these days, you can't possibly serve all of it, especially not as a business of one. So there's no point thinking of it in those like competitive terms. You're only hurting yourself.
Agreed. And honestly, I think that most of the great connections I've made that will probably be moving towards clientele coming up in 2025 are through who would be seen as a competitor, because they have so much work overflow. They need to be able to tell their client, okay, Nexus can help for this period of time, or third parties, that have so much business coming in, and then they're reaching out and saying, hey, could you help us out? So I would say that it's kind of the opposite. It's the competition's actually helping me.
Yeah, no, I love
myself. And in a way of, okay, I want to make sure that quality is out there too. Right? Like build up the quality, push out those who are just trying to make a buck. And I appreciate that too.
And if you were to have a leadership New Year's resolution this year, what would it be?
A leadership New Year's resolution. I really don't know. That's a hard one.
Oh.
I don't know the answer to that, but I do. I think that's a serious question, isn't it?
It's a silly question, apparently.
No, but I think it's serious, like your leadership resolution. The thing is, I always believe everyone's the customer, but I also believe everyone's the leader. Whether you're leading yourselves or, whether Emily's, like yesterday, I was flouncing all over the place. So Emily was very much leading, and it might be.
I lead every day. He just doesn't realise.
That's fine.
Oh, Nice.
No, we will definitely get cancelled if we move on to that topic of conversation. One of us will say something. Well, no, one of us won't. You can't say anything wrong, and everything I say would be wrong. So
I reckon leadership-wise, not even from a business perspective, from a family perspective, our sort of our goal for the next year. So we've got 3 little ones.
Shane Ward. That's my goal. David did say this was a silly question, so I get to make Shane Ward references.
We've got 11, 9 and 7-year-old. They're all incredible in their own rights, but some of them need a little bit of steerage this year, and we want to make them the best that they can be. So leadership-wise, giving them opportunities to grow and thrive.
The best versions of themselves. That's a very 2024 answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
2025 answer.
2025. 2025.
Well, we don't know what the 25 answer will be yet, do we? It's too early to tell.
But we're magic.
That's true, yeah.
We can look into the future.
Good point well made. All that's left for me to say, I guess, is Happy New Year. And thank you again for joining us again.
Thanks, David. Likewise.
Love this. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I suppose I'm not into the resolution side, as I am that person.
Me too, but don't tell anyone.
But yeah, but I suppose for me, my advice to people, and I work with lots of clients and teams on this, is, and again, sounds cliche, sounds very twee, and sounds very sort of trendy, but it works, and it's quite powerful. Is getting clarity of your purpose. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, and the revelation that came from that conversation was like, wow, and it just did something for the individual. More so than me showing a mapping of how to do something. It was the purpose piece, getting clarity of that. What is your North Star? What is your your anchor in your life? What is your overarching focus? And knowing well that a purpose is always bigger than you. It's not about money. It's not about growing your business. It's about minds unlocking human potential and creating resilient mindsets and cultures. So that it's always outwardwards and almost helping other people generally and making a difference in people's lives. So it's a lot more less. It's not selfish. It's more other people orientated generally. I suppose getting clarity of that, and once you've got clarity of that, you can then sort of shine a light on your year and start to create a bit more of a map or a direction or a path that you want to sort of take that through. And there'll be things along the way that'll tweak. And I always say to my clients, don't get caught up getting 100% clarity. Get enough clarity that feels you can make some move and steps. And then things start to unfold and evolve as you move forward on it as well. And it's also helpful for when you're in times of challenge as well, whether you're a team, having a team purpose through to an individual. Having a purpose helps you when you're having those difficult times of obstacles, things going wrong, things failing. It helps you to sort of step back, helps you to be a bit more strategic, helps you to lift your gaze, and it helps teams to lift their gaze as well. A little bit what we're here to do, when things are all going a bit wrong, and helps you to think about solutions as well and create a sense of energy. So that's always my thing is get that clarity on purpose. And I know this time of year, people are thinking, new careers and new year and all that. But if you got clarity of purpose, brilliant. And then go from there. But I would encourage people just to get that clarity of purpose, whether that's a team, whether that's an organization. It will do you well and serve you well if you use it in the right way.
We, I think, are perhaps spoiled in that arena when it comes to that, because when you are doing it on your own, I mean, even if you're not doing it on your own, but if you're like the founder of the business, it's pretty clear, isn't it, what your purpose is? or at least it should be. It's certainly a lot easier to think in those terms than people who are in an employed role, perhaps. But having said that, I mean, talking of it in terms of the new year and thinking about things like Blue Monday, which is coming up. I'm not sure what day of the year it is exactly, but it's that point, isn't it, where the most people are the most unhappy or something after the new year. And then there's the employment version, isn't there? The day of January, I think it's normally like the 5th or something, where the most people quit their jobs.
Really?
Maybe they're the same day. Maybe I'm getting these confused in my mind. But anyway, I have to say, it's been a long time since I've suffered with that. I used to get it a lot when I was full-time employed, but now that, and I attribute it to knowing why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think without having that, you're so right. You get lost. You become aimless way too easily. Maybe that's just common sense. I don't know.
Yeah, and you've got to. You can still, as an employee, you can still get clarity of your purpose, and then see that broadly aligns with where you are. Because you don't get 100% alignment, and even business owners who've created businesses who can lose sight of what their purpose was sometimes, and that's important. And I encourage teams. I've done a lot of work with teams this year, but one particular team I worked with, it just became. They just got so. We did a whole day on creating their vision, their sort of purpose for their organisation. They've been around for a while, but it just did so much for the team. It energized them in many ways, and they were absolutely buzzing and re-excited about their business again. And I think there's something in it, and obviously you've got to embrace it and use it. And I think it's really helpful. And then from that, you create plans from it and ideas and what you can do next and everything else. And it's great for then onboarding new team members or people in the organization, because you've got this real sense of purpose, what we're about. People like being part of something that's got a purpose about it. Might not always agree exactly the purpose, but as long as you've got purpose, that's all that matters.
Yeah, definitely with you there. And I mean, maybe, I was making some gross assumptions just now, but maybe there's a fair percentage of those people quitting their jobs on that day in January, and it's because they've discovered their purpose rather than they didn't have one or didn't know what it was. Maybe it's, okay, well, actually, this is what I'm about, and this current role doesn't fit that well enough. I want to go and do something else instead. So maybe it's a positive thing. Maybe we need to ignore what the tabloids and the headlines have to say about it. That's always good advice anyway, probably. But yeah, lovely. Well, Julian, it's been great talking to you again, even this briefly. I don't want to steal too much more of your time. So thank you so much for coming back or being here for the first time, whichever it was we agreed it was. Have a wonderful new year, however you choose to celebrate it, and very best wishes for 2025 as well.
Oh, thank you for having me, David. It's been a pleasure. And for you too, have a great new year yourself.
Don't do resolutions. Why would I set myself
fair
up
answer.
for fail? Nah.
I'll tell you a secret, I don't either. But I thought it'd be a fun question.
This is just like some answer from last week.
I was just going to say, doesn't this remind us of something? Don't do it unless you enjoy it.
It is an interesting question, though. Yeah, like if you were going to, what would it be?
Yeah, if you were going to set yourself a goal of how to be a leader.
I don't know, I guess it would just be if we had people.
I was like, you're already great, mate. So, to be honest, Debbie can't be a
solution is just keep doing what I'm doing.
Do you remember when we used to do those, those reviews you used to have in the corporate world? Like, just continue doing what you're doing. All right, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's a lazy manager, that is.
Well, not put me in your team. It's not. There's nothing they can tell me to do. I'm only joking. Wasn't that good?
Oh man, it reminds me of those like the really cliche interview answers for when you're going for jobs. Like, what's your biggest weakness? Well, I'm too perfect.
I care too much.
I care too much. Oh, just settle down. No.
Actually, how do you answer that question though? Because it's like, I'm sometimes can't be bothered to use my system properly. Like, you don't want to tell them that, do you?
No.
I don't want to tell you that.
No.
When I forget to put things in the system.
I don't like hearing it or finding it out.
So it's like, what kind of thing can you say?
And the thing is, as well, is the whole thing. If you know you've got a weakness,
sometimes caring too much is a weakness.
Working too hard, burnout.
Sometimes it is.
But I think a weakness, once you find it, you've got it. Is again the awareness, right? So if you know that sometimes you don't properly read an email, which I know I don't, then I know that before, like, for example, yours, I skimmed it, actioned it, and went, oh shit, missed the last comment. So, oh bother.
I did bury the lead on that one. I should have put that at the top, not at the bottom. But
yeah, but it's that. So, but like that. So technically, that would be a weakness. But because I'm aware of it, I deal with it.
It's still a weakness.
It's an area for improvement.
That's
what I prefer.
They shouldn't even be asking what should we do.
It's a horrible interview question. Anything where it's like a gotcha thing, I can't stand those.
What do you think about the question though? Like, what are you going to bring to the team?
Do you know, I have a real problem just with interviews in general. I don't like the way they're done. I don't like anything about the process. As a candidate or as a recruiter, like they're not productive, in my opinion, in my
It's kind
experience.
of pointless as well, because you can have people that come in for an interview that are really good, and then 2 weeks later, once they start work, you're like, why are you here?
Some can talk a really good game,
Yeah.
but can't do it. And then you've got the others who are actually really good, but they
You get the ones that who get really nervous in interviews and stumble over their words and forget everything they wanted to say, and you go away with an impression that they're rubbish.
One time we were doing an interview with my colleague, and this woman came in and she just started crying. She was all right to begin with, and then she started talking about Canada for no reason. No one had asked her about Canada, but she was telling us how big Canada was, and then she just started crying about people like they were ill.
Oh, bless.
Me and Rachel were like,
she must have been having a day. Yeah.
You haven't got the job.
Must have been having a day. See, if that were me, I'd probably ask her to come back another day. Because obviously there's something else going on there, isn't there?
I don't know what she's doing now. I think she just wandered in and got stuck, got lost.
Didn't even mean to interview. Just got ushered into a room.
Well at the beginning anyway. She didn't really know what we did. She did there was nothing, so she didn't seem.
But on that, I want to know though, what would you change then? Obviously, you don't like any of the process. So what do you think would be a good? Because you have to do something.
Yeah.
You can't just read the paper.
Yeah, David.
You need to meet them. Are they going to fit in with the team? What kind of personality? Are they a secret idiot?
Yeah. So if I was doing it again, I can't remember who it was who gave me this idea. It was somebody on the podcast this year, and they're going to be really angry with me that I've forgotten who they are. But anyway, yeah, it's one of them. But I absolutely love this idea where you basically you hire them for a week. So they get paid for the interview process to start with, which is much better anyway. And then they just do the job for a week. So they're in the team they'll be working with,
Great idea.
doing the job. So you learn whether they fit with the team, you learn a bit about their personality, and you can see the quality of their work as
How
well.
are you trying to get them access on the systems in those countries?
No, but also the pre-qualifying. So I like the idea, but you have to pre-qualify them to get them to that point. There's someone who used to do the training, and then in a high turnover company, it used to do my head in. Every 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, for God's sake, I've just done this with someone else. I've got to go back over it again, start again. And it wasn't against.
Yeah, but if you're doing that anyway, yeah,
but it's soul destroying training sometimes.
But what happens? Yeah, how would you get them from when they say, "Hey, I'm interested in your job," to okay, come in for a week? There must be another step in between, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the screening part of it on the CVs is going to stay the same, isn't it? It's just replacing the interview process.
Maybe take them out for lunch. I think that's what I would do. See how they eat
lunch.
See how they eat, what they eat.
Yeah, well, do they
use the right cutlery in the right order?
Do they put their knife and fork together when they finish, or do they just leave them?
Yeah, they talk with their mouth
It
full.
annoys me when they do that.
Do they talk with their mouth full? Do they drink with a straw or properly? All that.
Nothing wrong with drinking with a straw, but will they take your chips?
Well, if they did, that would be weird.
I know, but some people do.
But is that a sign of confidence, though?
No, it's a sign of rudeness.
Don't be taking my chips.
That's theft.
I agree. I just said it to wind you up.
See our faces sometimes. No. I was going to say to you, are you excited about 2025 then?
I am actually, yeah. I'm really excited about, obviously, the relaunch and all that stuff that's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, but what, have you then got a strategy after that? Is there anything else?
I mean...
Come on,
I have a new brand strategy, yeah. And we've got a whole... I say I, because I'm on my own, obviously. But so there's going to be new stuff. There's going to be a new leadership quiz that's launching. There's going to be a quarterly workshop now as well, and then we're going to be pushing the community as well.
Awesome.
I said we again. Damn it! Stop doing that.
You're the king of it.
You're the king of your castle.
Yeah, I don't like it though. I don't like it.
Well, that's on you.
Yeah,
that's fair.
You're the one saying it.
I know, right? It's just, I've been saying it that way for a decade. Like, I can't stop. Anyway,
we can say we.
We can.
Yeah, you get away with it. Yeah,
we do.
Not like me.
We do it all the time.
Stop it! It's showing off now. Anyway, well, I think that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much for coming back again. So that's like, what, the third, fourth, fifth time you've been on the show now? You must be the record holders.
Badge, one, and two, always. Thank you so much for always having us on here.
Yeah.
Because we do.
Of
we
course.
enjoy these chats. It's
it's always fun. Always fun. I can send you a digital badge if you really want one.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little, top fan one or something, or just some kind of recognition for that. I would like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Cool.
you. Yeah, there's your homework.
It won't be very good, but I'll send you something.
Just make me laugh as we care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And Happy New Year. I'm sure I'll see
New
you
Year
next
to
year.
We've got this.
Yeah, 2025. Power pose.
I'm going to stop now before this gets any sillier.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, New Year's resolutions never worked, especially in January. I tell people, don't set a New Year's resolution in January. I want you. There's so much that happens over Christmas. You get overwhelmed, overstimulated, and there's so much going on. And next thing, January, if you're trying to start something new, if you haven't started the momentum already in December, you're not going to get going in January. It's going to be very difficult because there's the lull and the trying to get back into routine again. It's going to be difficult in January. So what I do, if people have not already started building momentum in December, then I want them to take a step back in January and just get grounded again.
Yeah.
Become more self-aware. Okay, what do you expect of yourself this year? And try and set something to get the, let's say, the wheels in motion towards the end of January, but February is when you're beginning. And rather than setting a big audacious goal, it's about getting clear on what do you expect of yourself this year? What would you like to gift yourself at the end of this year in December? What would you like to look back and say, I'm glad I gifted myself in February what I wanted to achieve? For me, what I've been doing instead is I give myself a question that I ask myself every day or for every decision. So for 2023, that question was on growth. So anything that I did, I was like, does this help me to grow in some way? Whether it was if I was getting a meal, if I was getting shopping and I find myself in the snacks aisle, I'm like, does this help me to grow? Well, and then I make a decision then and it helps you grow one way or another. Yeah. It's like wider. And then I'm making an empowering decision when I say, no, this isn't helping me and this is why I'm not picking it up. And then I feel good about that decision. Or if it's something at work and someone's passing me too many duties and I'm like, does it help me to grow to bring on all these extra duties? And if it's no, this is going to overwhelm me and stress me out, the decision that's going to help me grow is learning to say no and setting that boundary. And so that was a lot of decisions that I was making. Same with the podcast. I'd started the podcast only 6 months beforehand. And I was like, okay, does jumping onto so many conversations this week, is this going to help me grow? And at the time, I'm like, yes, I need to put the reps in so that I get better at communicating with people. And without overwhelming myself as well, having in my own time schedule for when it worked for me. And I was like, this is helping me to grow, to get better at time management, to get better at conversations, to get better at how I communicate myself more clearly. And so that was growth. And then last year, my word was service. So I was like, does this help me be of better service? Does this serve me? Does this help me to serve others? And then that helped me to get more out there and meet other groups, meet people in person, and communicate and connect better with people.
I really like that.
So yes, and I love that. Yeah. And for 2025,
I was going to ask you, what's the next year's one? Come on, you got to tell us now.
For 2025, there's so much negative connotations around what's expected or of people. So it's going to be a difficult word, I think, that I'm going to say, is this expected of me? So I've been kind of lulling on it for a bit and might give it another until the end of January to see how does it affect me when I use this. It's kind of like power sentences and words, the effect that words have on us. And do I have a negative connotation around the term what's expected of me? But for me, I think getting clear on that, the only reason there's a negative connotation is because if you have the narrative of, oh, so much is expected of me and I cannot live up to that. Whereas if you have a very clear expectation, what you expect of yourself, what you feel is expected of you by others, and where do you set that boundary so that others do not over estimate or exceed their expectations of you, and that you make it very clear that this is what I can do, so don't expect more than this. This is what I can deliver to you. And if I can communicate that more clearly and say, this is my capacity and I'm offering this much of my capacity to you. If you're expecting more and that's not going to be met, then if you're not communicating that clearly, there's going to be resentment. But if we can get very clear on this is what you can expect of me, and if you know that's not going to be met, we'll have to look somewhere else for that resource, for that capacity. So that's where it is for me. I have to get clear on, is this the right phrasing that I want to bring in to every decision that I make? Or will I find something that has the same effect, or a more exponential effect even, in a different word or phrasing than expectation? Or another one that has crossed my mind is resentment. I was like, will I hold resentment over this decision? Because if you let a lot of resentment build up, then that's not good either. It's like, am I going to resent someone because of this? If I say, no, I'm not going to resent that person because of this decision, then I cannot hold it against them if things go wrong. Because I've said, well, I already said that I would not resent them. Then the onus is back on me. I made that decision not to resent them. If I take something on and I say, yes, I'm going to resent someone if I do it for this outcome, but I won't resent them if I'm getting a more desirable outcome instead. Okay, then I need to communicate something better. So I think expectation and resentment are two big words for me at the moment. They're words that get thrown around, and there's a lot of negative connotations if the two words are not serving you. So that's where I stand at the moment. So I need to find out, okay, what's the power phrase or what's the power word that I'm bringing into 2025 that will serve me in all of my decisions, so that I can get more aligned with my values.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear the thought process behind it as well. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, maybe one of those is the result of the other. But yeah, I won't interrupt your thought process.
Yeah, but I guess it all comes down to, like, people just have different, the way your narrative kind of rationalizes your expectations or your resentments. Yes, the kind of like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, you're so right. It's words that they become buzzified. That's a word now?
It is now.
And we forget what their original meanings were and what the intent behind them and how some of these things make us feel as well. And obviously that's really important for how we then behave. And yeah, and so relevant to what you talk about on your podcast as well, of course, as you know, because that's why you're saying it, I'm sure. Excellent. Well, Eugene, I'm afraid I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. And thank you again so much for being with us for a third time this year. Happy New Year. Very best wishes for 2025. And yeah, let us know where you land on the question.
Yes, of course. I'll keep you updated.
Awesome. All right. Well,
awesome.
Have a great day.
You too. Happy New Year to you too, David.
And how do you feel about New Year's resolutions? Because some people don't like them. Oh, I want to check before I ask.
I love them. I think they are great sometimes, but like I think, okay, what I've learned from my years of trying to make resolutions is I think you should make just one resolution that is like very achievable, that forces you into some sort of habit. And I'll tell you why, because I think this is my only year where I've had a resolution and I've actually been able to stick with it until the end of the year. And so in 2023, I think, and I didn't do a really great job with this in 2024, but in 2023, I was like, I need to have better work-life boundaries, and I need to have a better focus on my physical health and my mental health, just in health in general. And so it was like a very vague resolution for 2023. It didn't come true. And so I was like, okay, 2024, I'm going to be a little bit more concrete around it. And so I told myself in December, I'm going to start running and I want to do 5Ks. And so I told myself, okay, I'm going to do one 5K for charity every month in the year 2024. And that was like a very doable 5K because you can walk a 5K in an hour, and all like charity races allow you to walk it. So I told myself, like, worst case scenario, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to walk. And I'm going to commit to doing one a month. So it's not a lot of time, right? It's like an hour a month. And I will say the resolution is like half the reason I like did it some of the months this year. But other months I had a lot more momentum going into a race, and I would run for weeks leading up to the race. And I felt like I was like in the best shape that I'd been in a while. And then I had a drop off. And then I would be like, okay, I have to like do this. I have to show up today because it's the last day of the month. And I like, if I don't do it, this resolution is going to die. And it's like September and I don't want it to, like, I'm so close to the end of the year. And so all of that said, I have officially completed this resolution this year. And at my peak during the year, I ended up running a 10K. And so I'm looking to next year and I'm like, can I run a 10K like half of the months? Like, I'm thinking about expanding this resolution. And then I'm thinking about also coming up with a new resolution similar to this one, where it's like an hour a month, but committed towards like something that's important to me as a value that I can track easily over the course of the year. And I learned from doing this year that I can see progress, even if I show like minimum effort every month, because there were a lot of months where I just like literally just showed up and I was like, I have to do this because of the resolution. So I like the forcing mechanism of the resolution. But then I found like over the course of the year, like in January versus today, like I'm a little bit faster. I can run a 10K if I want to. I know what to do if I want to go running. And it's not such a big barrier anymore. And so I haven't come up with a resolution like that for 2025, but I want to find something where it's related to a value of mine. I have some sort of like way of measuring accountability, and it's very minimum commitment, like 1 hour a month.
I'm on the fence about the resolution idea, I'll be honest. Partly because I'm way too ambitious and I never achieve it, and then I get upset with myself, or I just do something that's like really token and doesn't really make any impact, and then you just, well, what's the point of doing it? I've never found that happy medium, which I think you, by the sounds of it, you have.
I found this year, and I feel like I was very influenced by James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And so it's about finding that like zone of hard enough that it feels like an achievement, but easy enough that you can just show up with a habit.
Yeah, and actually do it. Yeah.
And do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I guess I have against resolutions is it feels like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and it's a once a year thing as well. And I feel like that self-improvement piece, especially for leaders, that shouldn't be a once a year thing. That should be an ongoing process. But then I think with your resolution, that's a great example of one that does both, isn't it? Because you did keep it going all year. Yeah, you might be swaying me to the other side of the fence.
For anyone listening, I guess, a resolution is just whatever you want it to be. And the point is really about reflecting on what you have today and what you don't have and what you would like to have at this point next year.
So if you were going to have a leadership themed New Year's resolution this year, what do you think it would be?
I think to have more time for intentional reflection, like making space and time to write specifically about my experiences, and making sure that I'm taking that space and time to like appreciate the journey I'm in and the growth I'm having, because I think it's really hard to have growth if you're not reflecting on what you're learning. And so I think that's my number one resolution for next year. And thank you for helping me make it, because I think I will stick with that next year, because I think it's something I really missed this year, not having that space to really reflect on this journey.
Yeah, and I think the other really powerful part of that reflective thing is sometimes by doing that, you'll realise things that you have done or you've grown that you didn't realise. You didn't notice it happening. And I love that whole reflective learning approach for exactly that reason, because it kind of forces you to look back and think, okay, what have I actually done differently this week or month or year or, yeah. I've tried it a few times over the years, and it's always kind of brought something to my attention that I wouldn't have thought about otherwise. So, yeah, I love that idea.
Thanks, and thanks for prompting it, because I'm like feeling very motivated to like make this my resolution for next year.
Nice.
And I will say, like, it's not just like the time to reflect, but it's also the reflection, as you were saying, it gives you a chance to have gratitude over what is working. And then I think it also gives you that space we were talking about to decide, are you like in a sunk cost scenario right now, or is there a new direction that you should be moving in?
Yes, definitely. And it helps you think about what isn't working as well, which is always important. Although it feels a bit negative and people don't like to dwell on it, but it is important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about reframing it as moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Lessons learned, not a mistake made. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Definitely. Well, we'll check in again next year then and see how you got on with that one.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. This will be accountability there.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think that's probably all we've got time for, but Denzel, thank you so much for coming back again. It's been great chatting for the second time. Very best wishes for 2025 and Happy New Year as well.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you and happy 2025.
I like the idea of setting goals. I don't necessarily feel you need to do it in New Year. The only New Year resolution I have ever kept was probably about 15 years ago now, when I decided to stop drinking coffee after 4 o'clock. And it really worked, or caffeine, and it really worked in terms of sleep. In fact, a few years after that, it's now sort of 1 o'clock-ish when I stopped drinking coffee, and it was brilliant. And it's the only one I ever kept because it did work, and often I don't think they work. So not really one for New Year's resolutions, although I do think it's important to set goals, but you can do it at any time of the year. So yes, that's my view.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I don't know. I don't think I've ever set one that I've achieved, and that's partly why I don't like them.
Yeah. Well, there is some statistic, isn't it? I'm going to get it completely wrong. We think by January the 20th, 80% of resolutions have failed or something like that.
It's because we get overexcited and they're always way too ambitious and just not at all achievable, or just really vague, like be more healthy. Like,
yes, yeah,
that's useless.
Definitely making specific, and I think January is such a miserable month anyway. Or certainly in this country, this sort of hemisphere, if you like, that it's hard to kind of do anything virtuous, I think.
So, with that being said, if you were to have a leadership themed New Year's resolution this year, what do you think it would be?
So I have a goal for next year. So that's how I would describe it. So from a professional development point of view, I am looking to get my professional certified coach accreditation with the International Coaching Federation. So I have the first level of accreditation, which is called the ACC. And for me, it's about going to PCC, which I tried to do this year. And in an epic fail, I read the rules wrong. And didn't have enough coaching hours. But I'm almost there now. So I'm going to do that next year. So that involves quite a lot of, again, time investment. So it's about you having to do a proper exam. You have to go to London, go somewhere face to face and do an exam. You have to do quite a lot of extra training and stuff, which I've already started. And I have to submit a recording of the coaching, which then gets assessed. So it is actually quite a tricky one, but I'm looking forward to it actually, because I think although the achievement is good, the actual process of going through it and what you learn as a coach and how I can get better at coaching, I think is the valuable thing. So that one, and then the one I mentioned before about the letting go, that's the other thing.
Yeah. I think small steps with the letting go. That's the secret. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So how long is this exam? It's putting me off the idea.
3 hours, I think.
3 hours?
Yeah. So I've seen some practice questions. So it's kind of multiple choice. I think there's a break in it, but it's a properly monitored. It's a bit like doing your GCSEs again. But a lot of it is around ethics. And my slight concern is looking at the questions. There are some grey areas. So it's kind of like, which is the one right answer when you think two of them would actually work?
Yeah. Especially if it's all multiple choice. So they have decided there's a right and wrong answer.
Yeah. Or it's one
which
of
feels
these
like,
where you've got 5 options and 2 of the 5 are right. And
oh,
that
man.
kind of thing. So,
no thanks. I don't fancy that.
Yeah.
I mean, especially something like ethics. Like, there's so many of those questions that there is no right or wrong. And so much of it is relative and contextual. And if you don't, how do you get all the background information you need to make that assessment in an exam
so there is
question?
a code of ethics for the International Coaching Federation. And so the idea is that your answer is in line with that. So the questions might be things like, what would you consider? Sort of thing. Yeah. But you can do a proper practice test, I think. So I will definitely do all of those. So I'm looking forward to being a bit of a learner, I think.
Yeah, well, and best of luck with the exam as well. I'm sure you won't have any trouble with it whatsoever. Yeah, well, that's exciting though. Yeah.
But I think leadership is about learning, you know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm with you there 100%. Yeah, and I've said it once, I've said it 100 times about the day you stop learning is the day you stop leading. So it's very cliche now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I like that.
Well, yeah, I must say I'm really enjoying the New Year one because it's a first for this year. But hearing about everyone's plans and aspirations for 2025, I'm enjoying it.
Good. Well, I enjoyed listening to the Christmas one last year. So
awesome. Well, Helen, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for your time today. And
it's all right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and best wishes for 2025 and Happy New Year.
Thank you, David. You too. Take care.
Well, to go along with our conversation today, and I don't think it's going to be hard to do, my leadership resolution is to pay it forward. And so in everything I do this year, what I want to do is make sure that whatever I'm learning, whatever I'm going through, I'm sharing it so that others can learn from it. And I believe in paying that forward. I get so much more in return, right? And, it lines up with even my strategy for next year, going to conferences, connecting with people, letting people know how appreciative I am of everything. And so if you can, the one thing I've learned about like a New Year's resolution, integrate it into your life. Don't make it something that's separate, right? And so if I can, what I'll probably do is put a little tag, wherever I'm at to say pay it forward, where it's like, okay, Gretchen, you can use that to pay it forward. You can do that to pay it forward. And so it's something that you just do as part of being you, and you create like this new habit. And so that's how I look at New Year's resolutions. If it's going to the gym every day, well, after January, that's going to be done. Or trying to do something completely new and different, it's hard. But integrating into what you're already doing, that's doable. You can do it. And you can hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? Is picking something that's achievable and then holding yourself to it. That self-discipline of it, which is a lot easier when it is an achievable goal.
Exactly. Do you know how many people just have absolutely unachievable goals for a New Year's resolution? Okay, well...
I have literally never achieved a New Year's resolution that I've set myself, which is why I don't bother anymore.
Well, okay, so take my advice here. Do something that you can integrate into your life almost every day, and it creates this new amazing habit that you don't even think about. Yeah,
well, I must say, after recording this episode, I've had some great ideas and advice from various guests about this, so I'm rethinking my internal policy on New Year's resolutions.
Okay, and maybe it's not a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's just you do things all year long, and maybe that's even better.
I think that's going to be the secret of it for me, because that's part of my issue with it. Is it's like I don't know, it's a gimmick, isn't it? New Year's resolution. Nobody ever expects to achieve them, and it's a mindset thing.
If you're big, if you're really big and really bold, no. but we should always be challenging ourselves. That's for sure. And yeah, if we could think differently, I agree with you there. Like not just one time a year, but like we actually check in with ourselves every quarter and say, okay, what am I doing that's good here? What am I doing that I got to change? I mean, that's leadership. I mean, to me, completely is like when you can hold yourself accountable to your feedback, which is good or not so good, and make changes at various times during the year. That's accountability. That's leadership. And that's amazing. So,
yeah. And reassessing the goal as well, because
yeah,
that's the other issue I have with it is that one thing and then you've got to stick to it for the rest of the year, but something might change. So you should be able to adjust the goal.
I definitely am not going to say I want X revenue for this year. No way. That would cause me so much stress. I mean, and I don't suggest anyone do that.
Me neither.
So, I think it's believe in the process, take the open doors and enjoy the journey. Because if you're not, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. Everything you've just said. Yeah. On that happy note, Gretchen, thank you again so much. It's been, as always, a wonderful conversation with you today. Very best wishes for 2025 and Happy New Year.
Yes. And many wishes to you as well. And I can't wait to hear about how your year is going to unfold as well. So,
yeah, well, likewise.
Here's to 2025.
Yeah, I should have a glass to raise. I didn't plan
that. We should. But here's to 2025. We are all going to conquer the world. So there we go.
Yeah. In a nice way, though.
Absolutely.
And what on earth isn't scarier in the dark? Like, well, no, actually raves are scarier when the lights come on, but for the most part, things are less scary in the dark. But like not bars at 2:30 a.m. when the lights come on, they're terrifying, but otherwise, usually light makes things better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Yeah, I mean, me getting up in the morning, that's probably better in the dark.
Well, I mean, for what, the next 3 months?
Yeah.
I had a meeting last night and a meeting this morning, one at 4:30 in the afternoon and one at 7 in the morning, and both of them were in the dark. Yeah. And so you just got to batten down the hatches and do things like this and share cool ideas with people, because if you feel down now, it's not a character flaw. Like our bodies and brains are not designed to thrive in this kind of darkness and cold. And so it's hard for a lot of people, I know. But I think a lot of times when we feel like we're struggling, we blame it on ourselves or a character weakness. We got to be stronger. We got to be more courageous. It's not. Like, it is very hard to fight with biology. And so many of the ways that we feel are biologically driven. And we just beat ourselves up as if somehow it's character driven. And I think that the older I get, the more I realize the things I don't like about myself are so often biologically driven, whether it's imbalances in the brain or it's weather and sunlight. So much of it that impacts how we feel, we have no control over. And, I heard a great speaker say, you want to solve problems? Here's my best tip. Once you're facing an issue, write down every part of the issue that is bothering you, and then scratch off all the parts over which you have no control. He's like, you will be amazed at how fast that problem just became a lot smaller for you. Not the problem maybe, but like what you can do about it is a lot more limited than you thought. So do what you can and let go of the rest. It really helps me. I'm like, I'm going to write the whole problem down. And now what are the parts I have no control over? Scratch, 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 scratch. Like 3 parts are left. Well, let's deal with those parts. And I don't feel powerless, right? Because yes, there's 10 things I got to deal with and I can only really have control over 3. But at least now I've been reminding myself, but you do have control over 3. Now do something about it. That always helps. Sometimes when you knock off the 3, all of a sudden you find yourself, oh, wow, the 4th is now possible, but only after the first 3. And I think when we look at problems and we can't knock off all 10 parts at once, we're like, what's the point? Like, you can only knock off number 4 after you finish 3. And number 7 only becomes apparent after you get through number 4. So like the adjacent possible is what someone called it once. I don't know if you've ever heard that, is that so many things that exist in this world could not even be conceived of until the thing that came before them was invented. So like the PlayStation 5 in 1987, no, like no one would think of it because the concept is impossible. But after like 3 generations of consoles, all of a sudden this is a possibility. They call it the adjacent possible. And to me, it's such a liberating idea that the thing I'm working towards, or the thing that will solve this problem, like I can't even conceive of it, but it's only because I haven't yet conceived of the thing that happens 2 steps in front of it. Once you do that, then these opportunities in your life will open up. But what it teaches me is that momentum is crucial. Like it's not about plans, because so many of the paths that we should take, we don't know they exist yet. And plans keep us from looking for them. So if you make decisions based on momentum, which is what I want to do in 2025, keep doing. What happens is you are always available to options that maybe weren't part of your original plan. And often those options are better because they only came into existence when you did work to create something before it. I love that concept. And that to me means that we always have hope, because yes, there are no options right now, but that's just because we haven't created one that's a little closer. I don't have a solution, but that's just because I don't have a partial solution yet. Once we create the partial solution, 3 more parts of the whole become available to us. That to me is a real source of hope.
It reminds me of that old cliche that I can't remember who it was or where it came from. It's the, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Yeah. And it's exactly that concept, isn't it? It's, yeah. And I think back to like my early career, and I spent so much time like worried, stressed, angry even about things I had no control over. I like to think I'm a lot better at it now. And if I can't control it, I just try and put it out of my mind or just leave it for another day.
You know what's so poisonous,
it is
man?
liberating when you can do that. Definitely.
Yeah, like you said, anger. Like that's what I've been so angry in my life. And it's just, someone told me recently, anger is the punishment you give yourself for other people's behavior. And I just was like, darn, like that really is true. And anger punishes us, and it makes us worse, and it makes us less compassionate and empathetic. And a lot of that anger gets turned on ourselves, and only hurt people hurt others. So like, as we go through the New Year's episode, I guess what I want to try to do more this year is to be hurt less. Now, sometimes you can't control that, but I'm trying to come to grips with the fact that I do understand that sometimes I choose to be hurt because it feels good, right? Like you feel, I don't know, you feel like you're in the right if you got hurt, right? So now you're the victim, and victimhood comes with anger all the time. And sometimes we play the victim because it makes us look better to other people. But I don't think we realize that while we're playing the victim, even though we're playing that part, the emotions we feel are real. So even though we're playing the part of the victim, we're still feeling the anger and the self-loathing and all of that part. So you can't play a character without still feeling the emotions of that character. So whatever you choose to play to try to get what you want in life or rationalize however you're behaving, just realize that you are imposing those emotions on yourself. You're choosing them. And I want to be angry less. That's hard this year. There were a lot of things that happened in 2024 that made me angry. Like the United States committed one of the great moral failures of our time in my mind. But you know what? That doesn't matter now. What happens is what we do in the time afterwards. We can dwell on what we feel about things, and this is what happens when you're a recovering alcoholic, is that no matter how mad you get, you keep coming back to the fact that there are things that I cannot change, and that my effort is better spent on the things that I can. And that real wisdom comes from trying to learn the difference between those two groups of things. And honestly, we are imperfect. But one thing the United States did get is they have one phrase in their founding documents that says we will strive to create a more perfect union. The idea that we can be perfect in what we are while still striving to become a better version of perfect. So that if we're not where we want to be, it doesn't mean that we're less than. It just means we're at our highest level of perfect possible today. That's where we are. But our goal is to always create something more perfect. And for everything that the United States frustrates me with, a lot of the principles upon which they tried to build a country are things really worth admiring. And to me, I keep looking at that we're striving to be more perfect, all of us. But that means that we have to accept that what we are today is as close to perfect as we can be today. And if we're not better, well, it doesn't mean we're failing. It means today's not the day yet. But it's coming. I hope,
Absolutely. Do you know, every time I talk to you, Drew, you give me some of these little nuggets that just make me reassess the way I look at the world.
Your podcast, you ask great questions.
Well,
and to me, like this, when I do interviews, I'll tell you, I'm not looking like a great answer is a great answer, but you're more likely to get a great answer if you can ask a question that makes the person being interviewed go, that's a good question. Like as soon as you hear them say that's a good question, you're going to get a better answer. And so keep asking great questions and keep asking hard questions that make you. Here's the thing. If we can all go through life asking questions that make people think of the answer 3 hours later and be mad they didn't know it at the time. But if you can ask a question that has them still trying to come up with a more perfect answer 2 hours later, you asked a question that mattered. And it's only through asking questions that matter do we start to get answers to things that matter. And right now, especially after a big election in the biggest democracy or one of the most powerful democracies on earth, is that we were asking the wrong questions. And we need to go back to answering questions that result in quality answers. And if we focus on the wrong questions, then we end up with answers that don't help us. So it's a really important. And I think that you doing this podcast and you asking these types of questions, I think it helps people shift their brain away from the way they've always thought, even if it's just to be funny. But man, to turn a brain a little bit sideways and rattle it means stuff comes out that if you're playing it safe would never come out. So try to be funny, try to be weird. It means that you've got to take a perspective on the earth that makes you come up with cool new ideas. So thanks, man. I appreciate you, one, thinking enough to ask me, and two, for always giving me stuff that I want to share with other people. I'm like, this guy just asked me wicked questions. Like, what do you think? So
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think that's a great note to end the episode on as well. So, Drew, thank you so much again. Very best wishes for 2025. I'm sure you're going to have an amazing year because you're an amazing guy. So, yeah.
I so appreciate it. Keep doing this, my man. I can't wait to see the episodes. I love compilation episodes. I know some people don't, but I love it when it's like, no, just give me the 7 best minutes of the shit they have to say. Like, that's what I want to know. So, man, thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. You took on another, like, it's the end of the year and you're doing like even more work for your podcast. So I'm very excited. We'll be launching mine in the new year as well. We're doing a new one called Good Company about how to create great places to work. So I may touch base with you and ask some advice on how to make this work.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I'm going to go create a Santa Twitter account. I'm sure there aren't any.
Yeah, probably not. Good luck with that.
All right, my man. You take good care of yourself and much love, okay?
You too.
Peace.
Well, viewer, listener, I hope you've enjoyed that episode and found some great, useful things in there. I certainly found several of those conversations a bit inspirational, and I've got some ideas for my new year as well. That's all I've got time for today. Thank you again so much for being with us. Do check the episode description for the links to websites for all of the people who've been on the show today if you would like to learn more about them. And I do, as always, encourage you to click on those buttons and go and visit those sites. That's it for me for 2024. Leading with Integrity is off until the new year now. All of, 24 hours of it. I hope you have prepared well for your celebrations this evening. I hope you don't get too messy, or do if you like. It's up to you, whatever you prefer. But anyway, have a great night. Celebrate well, and all the best for 2025. I'll see you next year. Be a leader, not a boss.